couple programming notes to start off with. For those of you who might be listening online now or maybe watching this later, it is being recorded, and if you go, we have a whole web page dedicated to the budget with each of the orders of presentations over the next month for all of our different departmental submissions. Also on that website at ellsworthmaine.gov/budget, again, ellsworthmaine.gov/budget. You can find an online version of the draft budget. Again, this is a preliminary draft budget for discussion purposes only. It's subject to change, numbers, analysis, revisions. That's part of this process. I think I brought out the red ink for today. I think some folks have some pencils and pens too. There could be some black ink put in here as well. But I think last year there was a very long form process. I think this will be a lot smoother transition, but it's such a great council here. We really look forward to your feedback and edits. And Ashley is going to be taking notes on the council changes. We mentioned at a previous budget meeting that she'll kind of keep track of the budget changes and then from council recommendations. So we'll have a running tracker of those and something to refer back to at the end there. From today, I'm going to give just some highlights from the budget. My memo also goes in a lot more detail. I won't read every piece of that. Also this year, I've taken a first draft of more of a longer-term economic analysis of the changes in the tax rate, really going back to 2009, as well as some of the main cost drivers, just to kind of zoom out a bit to see what areas of city government are kind of driving some of the rate increases and what we've seen over the past few years, but looking back kind of what the historical trends are as well. So I'll do a little bit of brief analysis there. And then we'll get to the main events, our amazing staff to do their budget presentations. Oh, thank you. I don't think we have Councilor Stein, but I'll take an extra. So with that, any questions from council before I jump into my memo?
Jump into your memo.
I have a comment.
Sure.
This is my 4th budget season, and this is the best I have ever seen.
Yes, sir.
Thank
it
you,
is.
thank you, thank you to everybody
Yes.
involved. Last year, we were given a blank book the first
Yes.
time around.
Yes, we were.
And this is just wonderful, and thank you, everybody that's been involved in this.
Well, thank you, Steve, and Kent. I'm glad you mentioned that. In terms of what you brought last year, I brought, in addition to the red ink, I brought another prop, which is what I labeled the FY25 failed budget abandoned on April 30th, 2024, which is about 29 days into my tenure here. And I don't think it's a secret that I came in during somewhat of a turnaround situation. There's a lot of news reports on that. One of the biggest turns around that felt like something immediate needed to happen was, I asked for the budget book, and this was it. No labels on anything, a couple spreadsheets, not a lot of order to these pieces. Oh, great. No worries. We got one for you. And to me, this is such a foundational document. Like, this is the main policy document. And we kind of dropped all of our pen. We had a big management meeting, and we're kind of like, we're going to fix this. And I know it's been a long time for budgeting here that there were some suspicious looks in the group. But I think about 10 of us, managers from all kinds of departments, from HR, from wastewater, from our deputy IT administrator who had we crashed on that budget book and built a 700-page book in 6 weeks. We restarted the whole process with council. I think you all basically did double duties that year. Got us into a great shape, really set the foundation. We also did a technology implementation of the software that they had purchased for the budget but hadn't implemented. So that was extra work that was done last year so we could also start tracking the budget in real time. This is the first, I think, budget that's been built within the software itself, department heads, and it was a big learning curve for all of us on building it inside the software, getting it ready. So we've made a lot of process improvements. Still, I think some ways to go. I've got some internal process improvements I want to make on kind of formats and design and better analysis. And feedback is always well. I know we're in better shape, but hey, this could be better. We could have this. Like, lay it on us. We love to iterate. And and get this in better shape. I think one of the other things now that we have better data that I'm really excited about is, being able to kind of track where the spend is, what we're seeing, and also, this year with 2 really big tax increases, and I'll go into the analysis in a second. That kind of coming in first is like, what's going on? Why did we just get this really big tax increase? And instead of inform kind of analysis that we've done why, but then also I think going this year, I know council is really like, this really needs to be as much of a maintenance budget as we can. Like, we have a new comp plan and a business attraction plan and housing needs assessment, but let's try to stick to brass taxes here. That's a direction that I've given a lot of staff, and you'll see a lot of today, a lot of the same budget as last year, are pretty similar to it, to kind of limit some of the funding requests. As such, I have said no to a lot of things. A full-time harbor master, additional police officer, an additional firefighter, increased funding requests for a lot of the nonprofits and social service agencies. Part of that was at the direction of the subcommittee that reviewed social services and others beforehand. I have made a few recommendations for additions. The new dispatcher, which when our police recommendations come in, we've seen a huge increase in call volume. It's also relative to our fire department. Obviously, that dispatcher does both. And then did add 1 additional firefighter per kind of this increased EMS services. And then the addition of a Parks and Rec director position, which was deferred last year, but was pre-funded with about $45,000. So hopefully limit the impact here for discussion. There are some key outstanding kind of budget considerations. The biggest one is the school budget, which I think we'll probably get on March 25th is when they'll have their number, or shortly before there, so I can input it into the system. So when you look online, there is a notation on kind of an asterisk. We've just kind of put them at the level they were at last year. So when you see that mill rate, the levy amount, percentages, that is not including the school's request as of this year. So that could affect whether it's how much further up it would go. Police union negotiations as well. Myself and Councilor Halloran are in negotiations there, so that could affect the budget here. I think we're highly likely to have that before the budget process ends, but we'll have to, pending council approval, consider that in the budget. While I've funded or included in the budget submission the Parks and Rec director position, including benefits, myself and Jeremy, who's been helping kind of look at this department, has a lot of YMCA and rec experience. We're still we want to have a fuller proposal on exactly what that Parks and Rec, while yes, a director to kind of oversee department, what that department would look at. Like, it's, there's 5 or 6 different areas of the budget already, which, this person could potentially oversee. And at the end of the process, when we do recreation, we'll have a more robust submission for you all, and it'll probably be a separate document. Also, following the kind of budget cycle, we do need to look at the reserve account funding, which we discussed a bit last year. Now that will be in shape to be reconciled and encumber accounts at the end of the fiscal year, which is the first time in many years. It's kind of that as we talked about last year, can be kind of the trigger for the remaining reserve accounts, where we're at with fund balance, and how we can look towards our capital improvement planning. So that's the other piece here. In similar ways to last year, though even more so, we've included kind of minor capital expenses per departments within their departmental budgets. Nothing huge. I know we have to talk about the track, the school. There's some other much larger capital and deferred item expenses, which our deputy city manager, Sarah, and myself are working on, so we can say, hey, here's the bigger ones that may need to be considered as a bond cycle, now that we're through the budget season. So that's kind of where we're at there. I will now go over to maybe Sarah or Ashley, if we could go to page 6, just to do a little bit of kind of some of the overall analysis before we, so just zoom out a little bit before we zoom back in. So I know coming in last year and then this year, we saw some pretty big increases, and so I kind of took the spreadsheets and did kind of a zoom back to 2009. In this figure 1 on the top left here, I really wanted to understand kind of what was the cause behind some of the recent property tax spikes, and identify some longer-term trends, and also provide some data visualizations and insights to kind of help you all see what parts of government are growing more and which are less, and what's kind of driving this, as well as kind of like what's the fiscal story of the past 5 years especially, because to me there was some irregularities in the trends that kind of deserve more look into. So if you look back on figure 1 from 2009 to 2020, or FY 2019, you're looking at a pretty stable growth rate. It's a pretty trackable year-to-year spending. And then figure 2 kind of goes, into the raw increase of the levy. 2009, you had a $614,000 increase over the year. And 2013, a $840,000 increase. And then you get to FY 2021, $42,000 increase. And you see that kind of in the line, it kind of flat lines out. And then FY 2022, $142,000 increase. FY 23, $145,000. And, that really stuck out at me as like, that's, historically much, much less than the mean average. And from 2009 to 2025, your mean is around an $800,000 a year increase. And then, the year before I arrived here, a big increase, a $3.68 million increase, by far a factor of 2, almost 3. Probably the largest, just by a dollar amount, levy increase in Ellsworth, at least since 2009, but I'm guessing in Ellsworth history. So that was kind of, and then last year, which, as we talked about before, 6 weeks into a budget cycle, we put it back together, but we're still at about a $2 million increase over the year. So yes, we lowered the rate of increase, but still not in line with previous trends. Now, at the same time, so your 2020 to 2025, you're looking at about like a $1.2 million mean increase now. And, especially that 21, 22, 23, like those are the highest inflationary years in a generation. So, it really sort of invites some additional questions of like what drove these kind of bigger increases. And when you look into it, and if we could, if we could go maybe page 8. So I went back into the audits, and they're also the relevant departmental audits of FY 2020, which is another big work our finance team did to kind of get caught up on all the audits over the past 3 years. You can kind of see some of the benchmarking for where we were at spend then, and then where we're at as a request level now. Those aren't tracking one-to-one on the data, by the way they audit and categorize things then, and the way we budget aren't necessarily the exact same categories, and sometimes categories has changed. They used to, for example, IT used to be a capital request for a lot of like the service things they did for, software that other departments hold, and now that's all in IT. That helps track budgeting better by department and spend, but in the near term, it seems like a big increase for IT, even though they haven't asked for new spending. But there are, I think, some general trends. General government, which is city manager's office, code enforcement, planning, economic development, et cetera, about $4 million in FY 20 spend. FY 26 about $6.86 million. It's a $2.8 million increase. Some of the analytics there, was in the finance department. There's about $500,000 between FY 24 and 25 for additional consultant professional services, accounting support, while there was a lot of financial turmoil for the finance director to kind of keep bills getting paid and other pieces, but at a very high rate, obviously. Technology budget that I mentioned went up to some of those pieces. General assistance, which we'll talk about today, went up pretty significantly. It's up by $120,000 a year since 2024. But the vast majority was employee benefits. That's general government holds all of the employee benefit categorization, both the general government, but also the public safety side. So that's in FY 2020, it was about $2 million. It was also $100,000 over budget in that year. FY 23. It's $2.5 million, still about $123,000. So they were under budgeting each year in those categories. And now FY 2026, we're budgeting about $3.6 million which is $2 million more than the previous year. So you say, why was general government growing? A lot of it's in the employee benefits, health insurance, pensions, et cetera, that really drives that. As well as, a lot of the public safety side of things is kind of the next really big driver. So in FY 2020, we're at 3.7 million for public safety spend. In FY '26, we're at 6.7 million for public safety spend. So that's a pretty significant increase over those years. Yes, we've added an EMS service. That's probably a lot of that cost. There are some pretty big collective bargaining increases. 27% increase in salaries over 3 years in the police department. A new police station, which is, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Very needed. I think folks that are in this building, it kind of boggles the mind that the police were here in a city of this size in the space they were previously in, but definitely adds additional cost. And that's also not, if you include the public safety benefit side of things, you're around 8.3 million just for the year. For the public safety, operational and staff costs plus employee benefits. Some pretty significant overtime costs as well, but that's not, I think, unique to Ellsworth in public safety and overtime. In some ways I looked at our budget and said, wow, there's a few police officers in Boston that make more than this, in our entire public safety overtime budget in a single year. So the public works as well, I'm digging a lot more into the FY20 audit. 1.3 million, around 4 million in the departmental request. I'm pretty sure a lot of this has to do with kind of the tech side of things and how we're tracking things. I've brought in the local roads money, which was a capital expense before, put that in public works. Some of our bond, and additional road stuff that we decided to do this year are kind of categorized in there. So I think that's more of a deferred maintenance catch-up piece. As opposed to huge increase in just general cost and staffing. The staffing levels are actually pretty similar to what they were at 5 years ago. And then the school department, which I don't have the micro level cost center analysis of, but also a pretty big increase. 2.8 million in FY 2020, 12.8 million in FY 2020, 14.6 million in FY 2025. We don't yet have a budget figure for them, but that's by far the biggest department of city spending. So that's kind of some of the general analysis. I'll let you all, there's much more on the website, including breakdowns of departmental labor costs and a lot of the 2020, 2023 audit findings. But I thought it would help council, the community, and staff and myself too, really kind of understand the broader picture of Ellsworth city spend. So before I break to send it over to department heads, I'll just kind of pause there and ask if, open up some questions from council.
So I just have a comment
Yep.
that, so when you're comparing these budgets, I know you made a point about it, but there are many things that were in a budget, say the fire or the police or highway, you're saying now the debt service is included as part of that, which is, so it's kind of hard to make those comparisons when those line items weren't in the original budget in 2020, now they are in 2026. So now if you look at our debt budget, it's probably way under because it's not being categorized in an operating budget.
Yeah, and it's kind of the problem of the audit too. Like the audit recategorizes them into, so we've submitted everything for the 2024 audit. I think we submitted in December. Hopefully have that too. That's a really important bridge. Especially because of the not exactly excellent budgeting practices of those previous 5 years. It's also difficult to just look back into budget books.
Right.
You really have to rely on the audit. And 2024 is kind of the bridge. So once that 2024 audit is set, especially in that huge $3.6 million increase year, we'll be able to kind of make that data bridge by departmental spend. And then we're into FY25, this fiscal year where we're in, the budgeting software in a much more reliable number comparison. But to your point, Tammy, that's still because there was a lot of recategorization last year as well. I think over the long term, it's going to be excellent because now, if you these bigger capital expenses, okay, this capital was for public safety, this capital was for public works, this capital was for this. And now that longitudinally over time, it's cold comfort now, but we'll have much better tracking, and it won't include some of those pieces.
I
So,
agree.
So excited about kind of, and that's the other piece of this too, is I'm looking to hopefully institutionalize some of these analytics, so they can we can update graphs, we can kind of create alignment here and move forward. And I know Tammy and I've had a conversation, because Michelle was on vacation. I was so wanted to call her because of her having two former finance directors, and she built these books that are, I mean, a lot of this current book and previous is based on all the work that she's done. So I don't people can understand how helpful that was. And like,
I love budget time.
oh my gosh, and I love binders, and you open Tammy's binders and it's just, oh my gosh, we have a template. So thank you all, and an excellent point.
So I'm looking at the total taxable value of real estate, page 11.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, no, and it's helpful to see the increase from FY 2009 to present day, and obviously that's significant. And these other trends that we're seeing, and I know you've been doing a lot, so I'm not trying to add more to your plate, but has anyone ever, are these numbers available for other municipalities of our similar, like, just to compare, to kind of track, okay, yeah, this, that's a big increase, but, does that mean, are we an outlier, or is it something that we're seeing more consistently throughout the state?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. And we kind of talked about this last year in mill rate comparisons, and then just like, well, Ellsworth is such a tough one. Orono, sure, similar size, but isn't a service center like we are. Doesn't have this like 4 million people coming through to Acadia. Yes, it has a college and some other pieces, but also doesn't have the same but I did look into kind of Brewer, Skowhegan, public safety across the board. I did look into Orono too. They have a really interesting budget. They have kind of a challenges section of each department that was very interesting, but I digress. And yeah, public safety, very typical story. In a lot of ways, the big salary increase for the previous collective bargaining agreement was based on, the state police, Bangor, a very competitive market for that technical, incredible skill set. And was creating pressures for turnover in our organization. And, we have, I put our police department against anybody in Maine. Excellent team. So, that was kind of across the board. But there were some like interesting outliers. Brewers, like Parks and Rec, like, massively bigger than ours. Similar size city, similar kind of mix with the service center piece. But they also have a pool that they're operating, but they have tons of staff in that department, huge outlays and beautification, this and that. And you go to Brewers Riverwalks, you go these other pieces. The Public Works, if I remember correctly, had a pretty substantial increase in spend, comparatively speaking. So I could also see that being next kind of step with this too, is having a better comp mix. And to your point on the taxable value of real estate, it's a really important one in 11. It was kind of like the perfect storm. Under budgeting for 3 of the highest inflationary years, really pushing a ton of future costs, some big public safety increases, and then a $500 million, and it goes from 1.1 billion to 1.55, almost 1.6 billion now increase, which it's Ellsworth's valuations like this, 2020 hits, so it actually changes the distribution of taxes when you have that huge of an increase too. Fortunately, we have a lot of new businesses, a lot of commercial growth, a lot of really the raw dollar amount that are increased from those proper valuation increases, and a lot of homeowners too. You see your property valuation increase go up. Unless you're right to sell your house, it's not a great thing for you. It might be great if you're trying to sell your house, but in the near term, your property valuation, if it's going up more and more than some of your other neighborhoods, your taxes are going up as a share of others. So really change, I think, a lot of the distributions of the tax rate too. So it's another kind of analysis piece too. We could do like distributions of like, all right, the $200,000 category, how much were they paying in 2020 versus the valuation change, the 400, the 600, the $20 million like huge commercial businesses up there. How did the distribution of the tax rates change over that period of time is another really interesting analysis, I think.
The other thing I'd like to see is, as part of this graph, I don't know how you would do it, but what part was a city increase versus what part was the school, because I think we did do a huge increase, like a $2 million increase, maybe in '24.
School?
Yeah, for the school, so, I mean, it would be nice to kind of see, and I know they're a department of the city and it affects the overall taxes, but I would like to see kind of
Yeah, and if you go to 16, this isn't a,
page 16.
yeah, and this isn't a great version of that. I feel like,
Because
feel-
that's just a mill rate, and that's,
so you can kind of see the share of the schools, but there could be a dollar figure analysis that we could kind of do there. You know, the previous slides has like, I think it's 2 million over the 2020 to now increases in kind of one of the bigger categories, but yeah, I could definitely see doing some analysis there. The other area I really want to do some analysis, we have a great spreadsheet from our code enforcement office that has like every single permit that's been issued to, for buildings since like 2000, might be even like 9. And, you know, I was just in the raw data. I didn't quite have time to printing it here because I wanted to pull out, you know, what's driving some of the new businesses here. How much are they worth? You see like, you know, 50 million plus in, you know, 150 unit apartment complex go through planning board last year, you know, a 40 unit apartment complex, a new like Home to Suites hotel. Like those are big properties. When they go online and the valuation increases, it's going to kick off a ton of taxes, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in new taxes from new growth. And that's the secret sauce of any community. You know, I was in Arizona recently for a wedding, and just these beautiful community centers and this, and it's like, and then housing being built everywhere, and that's just, in some ways, it's allowing for that level of growth without having to rely on increasing tax rates. Where a lot of rural America, you know, your services are increasing, your public safety is increasing, but if your valuations aren't increasing, you're not seeing new buildings, new growth, it's just increases the taxes. So Ellsworth is, I think, pretty unique in rural America that it's seeing this kind of potential growth that I really want to start better analyzing that kind of spreadsheet. Because I hadn't seen, like, I looked back, I didn't see a 150 unit apartment complex being built here. Sad thing that's also not being built here is like those big single-family home subdivisions that seem to kind of stall out in the, you know, pre the Great Recession. Like they, you know, the Maddox Avenues of the Braes, as we just talked about, some of those, your kind of classic Americana, big neighborhood developments. You know, there's been some on the, you know, so there's a different mix that's kind of happening here, but a lot of commercial development. So I want to do a little more analysis there and kind of see if we can track trends and maybe pick up on like, wow, that's what's coming to Ellsworth. How can we do more of that? That's going to be really helpful. Or like, that's concern. We don't want to just have tons of big apartment buildings here that are short-term rentals for Acadia, that kind of thing.
I would just add to all of that, that where this growth is happening matters as well, because when you have the more housing units requiring more services, if it's out in the hinterlands, you've got more school buses, more ambulances, more roads, more
Yeah.
road maintenance. So it's the cost of sprawl. Where we want the growth, we just want it where it actually makes sense for everybody, the households and the community at large.
Totally, and I think I mentioned in my memo just the urban growth development. I know there's some potential courthouse that,
I was brilliant.
I believe you. I believe you.
Cost of sprawl, we have to consider that in where the growth is happening.
yeah,
Sorry.
to Councilor Smith's point, you know, you see some of the growth happening on, you know, Route 1 and Route 1A, but further and further away from the urban core, but it's next to the road, but no water sewer, further for our police and fire.
School
Not as
buses.
walkable to the
Right.
downtown to have those businesses, so really promoting growth in our urban core, I think, is pretty key. Great.
Cool.
And with that, I think I'm going to send it over to, if we could go to page 319. 319. We're going to start with Sue, first on the list, and
Pages are numbered.
it was not an accidental choice.
Just that they're-
Sue's one of our best. I hate to hype you up too much, and
319 and they're numbered.
thank you, Sue, for joining us tonight.
Sure.
Remember a year ago?
Yes, we did request that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody find it?
Warm.
Because the pages are numbered. They
So
are.
warm from the printer.
I know it is.
So, good evening. I'm Sue McLean, tax collector and city clerk. And just a little bit about what's going on with my departments. The last 9 months, we've been working really hard and trying to figure out what we needed to do to make the tax office and the clerk's office run more efficiently. Things that we specifically were honing in on were customer service was the first thing, and how can we be better at that? What do we need to be better at that? And one of the big items, the biggest item is our new counters, which it's going to make such a huge difference in what we can offer and how we can offer it. The prior counters, the way they were curved, they were an ergonomic nightmare. I sat at them for a while, and I would go home at night all twisted up and sore. It just didn't work. So I fought for it, and for, I don't know, 3 years, I think. And finally, we got it going. And they're moving down today. So my people have been upstairs for the last month and doing amazing with what they had, but when they come down, it's going to be even better. And I think that we need to give a huge thank you to Jim McLean for building that all on his own. And really, all Tina and I did was say what we wanted, what the end result was, and he designed it and built it and added some features that we never would have thought of, but make it amazing. So
What a
I really.
catch that guy is, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to build him up right now, because when he gets home, it doesn't work. So, so anyway, he's really, and Jim tries really hard not to spend taxpayer money, and sometimes to a fault. But in this case, he used as much of the old counter as he could. And even to the point where there are some parts that he couldn't use, but he's taken them and he's going to be making them into freestanding cabinets for us. So there was nothing wasted. I mean, it just is amazing. But that's, you all know how I feel about that. So, and then the next thing I'm looking at doing is to get both offices on a better training schedule. I'm trying to go through everything that MMA has available. That just hasn't really been pushed over the last few years, and there's so much that MMA offers that I think would be a huge benefit to us, whether it be on the customer service side or the law side or any side. I mean, just being able to take those trainings, to get out of here for a day, go mingle with other people that do the same thing you do, I think that's huge. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at moving duties around to whoever may be better able to take on the task, instead of, because this was a clerk's job, this one clerk is going to do everything. We're not doing that anymore. It's whoever can handle this. We're going to be cross-training, and while there are some things that are going to take a little bit in getting that done, the counters, the way they're set up, is going to make it so much easier to cross-train, because they're going to all be seated together. You're not going to have them and us, it's just us. So we're going to be a much, much better team. And really, the end goal is to have it so that when people come in, they can't tell the clerk office from the tax office. It's just going to be one office. They can go to anybody at the counter and can get anything done that they need, that we offer. And it's just going to make life so much better for the customers and for us. And the cross-training is ongoing. I mean, it is happening now, but it's going to be so much better once everybody's down here. So, having said that, in the tax office part of it, on my budget, I did do a few little tweaks, but nothing great. I deleted 2 lines because I don't need them, and I didn't see any reason to keep funding them. And then we added 2 lines because of, we added the printing and advertising, and then the legal line, which was somewhere else and has been brought here. We're all kind of doing our own now. So it kind of offsets it a little bit, I guess. And the tax lien expense line I reduced because I looked over the last few years, and historically, we've never used what was budgeted. So I brought it down to kind of an average. It's still a little more than what our actuals were, just in case. And then if I have to take it down again next year, I will. But this was a pretty significant reduction in that. So. And on the city clerk side, again, we deleted,
And that's page 58, if you guys want to.
sorry,
Should we finalize tax and then go to clerk, or do you guys want to?
okay.
think about
Anybody
that.
got any questions for that?
I should also note, maybe we'll stop on tax for a second.
Sorry.
I should
I
note.
tend to run them both together.
No, well, so we'll stay on 319. Just a little, my manager adjust, was I had an additional 1,000 for training to some of Sue's points previously. Both Sue and Tina really kind of partnered for reimagining the clerk's office and a lot of the amazing things Sue's already been talking about. I cut some of the training budget last year, and to her point on, seems like the team is solidifying now, we're really prioritizing cross-training, so giving a little extra so that they could attend some of those technical trainings, I think would be really excellent. And your point on Jim, for those that may think that, oh, it's just a carpenter that works or does facility maintenance, I mean, Jim is also, doing the salting out here. I saw him here multiple weekend days. He's, he's a manager level position too, so he's not getting overtime for any of that. He did an excellent job, and he also built the facilities budget and is working on things, so yeah, big props to him. But you had some questions,
I
Tim?
do, sorry. Your explanation here, the description says it covers 3 full-time salaries in the tax department. Is your salary, because you're half and half with tax and city clerk, is it split 50/50?
It wasn't 50/50 this last time. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think that's a Carrie question. You know, Carrie?
Well, so I just don't, because if you're
Yeah.
covering 2 full-time
I did-
employees in each, then you're over budgeting.
Yeah, no, my payroll was coming from tax, and I got, I think, a stipend for the clerks. But we haven't talked about that, and that's a good thing that you brought that up.
We'll make a note
Yeah.
and come back to you on that.
And
I
get
want
some
to
more
assume that,
clarification.
Currently, all Sue's payroll is coming through tax.
that's what I mean, because we're
Thank
close
you,
on the
Nate.
year-to-date. If you track the year-to-date to FY '25, it looks like it'll hit that 170 pretty close.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
The
that was
TV
great.
talks, it's awesome.
so I think Sue, even though she is clerk
Should we
and
be
tax.
splitting it now, though, to adequately account for her 2 positions?
And to kind of Patrick's points on how cities and towns do this, tax used to be in finance. There are a fair amount of cities and towns, some do it like that, tax is in finance. But there are a lot of cities and towns that combine clerk and tax, and it's just one budget. And
I think we're headed that way.
yeah, we talked about trying to do that here,
Yeah.
Okay.
was to combine both of those, but we'll track those 2 over to make sure that there's not over budgeting and get back to you, maybe splitting it, but I think next year, I want to combine that just for, not just this, but the reason we just talked about. This is working, our tax and clerk positions and kind of this cross-training as a team. Let's combine them so we don't have to switch from page 321 to page 58 and do what you just said, Tammy, I think we had a provisional period where we're kind of thinking, is this going to work? And it's working, so we'll
Okay.
combine for next year, and we'll double confirm that we're not changed right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other question I had was, there's no revenue included in the tax budget, and so what about lien interest and your lien costs revenue that you take in?
I think I knew I needed to do that, and then I just didn't. so.
Nate, do we have that just in the general revenues?
In the finance budget, I guess that's where it's been the last few years.
Right. 'cause
Honestly, it's something that probably needs to be moved to the correct department. But you'll see that on the finance report when we get there later this evening.
Okay.
So lien interest and what was the other thing?
Lien costs.
Lien costs.
Green costs.
Because tax used to be under finance.
Right.
so that's-
Yeah, we're still pulling it out.
Okay.
It's something, and I didn't do it this year, but it can kind of like, yes, a tax liens, but it's not like a service that the tax department is providing to acquire revenue. So in some ways, like, it artificially lowers the budget of the tax office, because, to me, I would consider that revenue like just a general revenue for the city government, not
It's
like.
fixed. They're gonna be sending those messages out either way.
So the finance department has a similar thing, like the sweep account interest from the bank, like that, the bank fees that kind of, so they acquire that as revenue for their department.
I just
But-
didn't want it to be missed.
No,
Because that would help, offset the
Yeah,
budget
no, I
with
knew I had
revenues.
seen it, but I just didn't put, it wasn't
Okay.
in my budget.
So for you, it's a little bit more, you just want, it's not where it's exactly it's at. Because for the finance department, like they do, provide services for finance for our enterprise accounts, like that to me is a revenue they should pull in. But the sweep stuff, like, they didn't do too much for that interest. So that's a good point, Tammy. Maybe I'll talk to you on, should we keep all those revenues, even if they're more just like related to that department, not something they actually, are soliciting.
Okay,
We're good?
anything else? So in the city clerk portion, I don't know what page that is.
58,
58.
59.
And thanks to Nate, from our IT department, who told me to write down the numbers of the pages.
Last year, we didn't have page numbers, so this is just
This
awesome.
It's the little things, that we- yeah.
We didn't really have pages.
To put a finer point on it.
All set? So there were a few minor things. We deleted a couple of things that are not being used. And really, everything else, we did do, let's see, we increased minor stuff. Training, we increased a little bit, because again, we're gonna be doing more of that. Office supplies, we increased because we need to get, I want to get some stuff for the new counters and the new area that we're setting up there. And then we need some new cabinets for elections, but we're splitting the cost because we can use some of that. The clerk's office will use that along with elections, so we're kind of splitting that cost. That's really about all for any kind of big changes. There's really nothing. We really tried to keep both budgets just as close to what they were. Not much changed.
And no manager adjusts on this one.
Question, it's not a large ticket item, but curious that the animal control fees and dog fees are here. Where does the animal control officer reside? So should that,
Police, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the police, but that's not what that is. That's dog registrations,
and my
basically.
understanding was that's how towns fund their animal control officer. It's all on the backs of the dogs, so to speak. You like that? That from,
Yeah, I know, I couldn't tell you that. I'm sorry.
Is that dog earmarked for
oh, wow.
specific?
Welcome
Oh,
back.
my dad. Was that a dad joke, Patrick?
Like I said, if we're just looking,
Got potential.
Might turn off the heat if you all don't.
Then what is the dog fees? Because there's dog fees and there's animal control fees.
I'm sorry.
There's dog fees and then animal control fees.
Yeah, the dog fees is an account that we don't use. I'm not really even sure.
It's an in and out.
Yeah.
We were talking about this, so we have like the state reporting that we have to do, and so there's the dog. Sorry, you want me to come up?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because it's not outlined here.
So we have, sorry, Katina Benatestein, Sue and I, best friends. So the dog fees themselves are fees we take in and we use for our reporting process because we have to send money to the state. So there's a portion of that that we take in that goes to the state, and there's also a portion that goes into agent fees. So this specific portion is an in and out, so we take the money in and then it gets sent to the state, if that makes sense. We were talking about it with Nate, I believe, and they were gonna try to work something out. Weren't sure if it was gonna stay here,
Doesn't seem like it needs to.
where it's
only
a different type of
$250.
account.
Right.
Does that make sense? Sorry.
We've got,
Sorry, I have
no,
one.
you're fine, you probably have a more updated one than I do.
No.
So you're gonna delete that. And use this.
Right, so this is the in and out account.
Yeah, the animal control fees.
Right. Yeah, because it does look like what we had discussed on here, because we were gonna delete the 10-120, the 40125 account. Do you guys see that on there, which is the actual dog fees?
Right,
And combining it with the animal control.
right.
Just to clarify, so that money, we account for it in our revenues, but some of it actually we don't hang on to?
That is correct.
So should that number be adjusted to reflect that whatever is going to the state is actually not part of, I don't want to call it revenue.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
Well,
liability.
show the net regardless.
We could use last year's numbers,
Here's
you
Nate.
know. Hi, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, how was it done before? Because I was saying, it seems to me it should be treated more of like a liability account if it's money coming in and going out.
Correct.
It shouldn't be a revenue, so that's how I see it. Otherwise, we need to have an expense account to show that same amount coming out.
Right.
But see, some of it is a revenue, so that's what's
But
a
it
little
doesn't look like
confusing.
collected anything this year?
Because the city itself gets $3. And to Nancy's point, that specific amount is what's supposed to fund the animal control officer or whatever that they use it for. Then you got another fee that stays with the city, that's $2, but the other remaining amount, the other $3 is the part that goes to the state. So it's some that comes in, some that stays. I mean, on the finance end, I don't know how that's,
I mean, it's only $250, it's not huge.
We can put it on the note list and we'll
yeah,
just.
it's not very much
Yeah, it's
money.
not, it's not about
Yeah.
the amount, it's
Yeah.
just about, is it going in the right place? And the dog licenses are supposed to, the net is supposed to fund animal control or animal welfare.
Yeah, we don't want it to
And
be the
$3 of a
tax.
dog license does.
Yeah. What'd you say?
But does that actually happen?
You can bring it back when
Does that
I-
get transferred to the police for,
That would be on the finance
Yeah,
end.
that-
I wouldn't know how that would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just take it in.
I want to say no, but so I haven't seen their piece. Although
Small-
Sean will probably, I know he's listening right now. Sean is probably going to
Why is he
be looking for his
texting me?
request. Our deputy chief, he's probably already email. What about that $7?
Yeah, right? And then, the only other things really is we had part-time payroll that we're deleting that. We don't have any part-time employees in either,
No, neither
in the
department.
department. And then tuition reimbursement. We don't use that, haven't, and don't anticipate it anytime soon, so we thought we'd delete that. That's about it.
Yeah.
Questions? All right, we'll keep This tag team here for election, or, sorry, joint office
I'll stay right
at
up here.
182. 182.
I think this is yours. Take this.
Is this where cannabis is gonna go?
Yes.
It had to be said.
Sorry.
Is this where cannabis goes? Right? Office.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I'm here all night.
Just live mics here tonight.
Well, maybe mine's all duplicates. Like I
I was
have
gonna say,
same
please not
stuff
all
like
mine.
zip in here. So, joint office budget, right? Is that what we're doing next?
Yes.
Okay. I was asked to be in charge of this because I have done it in the past once. I hadn't done it for the past few years, but I have done it before, and I think I was the only one that had done it within the staff now. So I took it on, and I kind of pretty much used 2024's fiscal year amounts, like what we used, and then pretty much flatlined it. I didn't really do much difference. So we did make some changes. Deletion of the printing and advertising line item, because that is now being distributed to each department. So all the departments now are gonna have their own. So it's not gonna land fully on the joint office budget anymore. So we're deleting that line item. And professional services, we went down through this. I believe there was one specific license that the city needs, right? Was it music? That falls under that. So we kept that in there, $400. And we combined two accounts. So we combined the miscellaneous expense and the miscellaneous supplies line items. We didn't think we needed both. So we might as well combine one account to make it less confusing. Let's see here. Office supplies, we didn't change the amount. Office equipment and maintenance, just to explain a little bit, that covers the postage machine and the folding machine, any maintenance that needs to be done to the machines. And we also used to have we still have shredding on site, but we had a conversation with Charlie recently that we were accruing some significant fees with having them come extra. So we've decided to go with a cheaper route and actually get a large commercial shredder. It's around $300, and use that as the main shredding bin instead of, we had a charge of $400 just for one visit from shredding on site, so, and we had multiple visits by them. So I figured this would save the city some money, just getting a shredder. Telephone, that is cell phone usage for employees using their personal cell phones. And it also covers the cost of the consolidated communications line for City Hall. And then postage and shipping, and that was no change, we just kept it as it was. We did call around to see if anybody was gonna do any large mailing, and we didn't get anybody that said they were going to this year, so. Any questions on that one?
Do you think that's gonna be enough? Because you
For the
have
postage?
$44,000 in 2024.
I'm sorry, are you on postage?
Yeah, sorry.
We were discussing that because some of that actually is library, so they actually give us money for their huge mailings. So it looks like we expended that much money, but we were also taking in money from the library that they do 2 huge mailings a year. And I
Okay.
think a portion of that is in that amount, that 40,000 or whatever. I don't know where you can see the money that was coming in to cover that. Can't see it.
No, we can't see that, so.
It looks like your FY '25 is 20,000, so.
Where do lien notices come from? Is there printing and advertising in the tax There's, I can't remember,
Yeah.
okay.
That actually is new this year, right?
And I should note that putting in advertising, legal, so the process change that Nate, Ashley initiated from our finance team, just seeing kind of the legal spend, it was all kind of coming into one bucket, and we want to track it better by departments and really kind of monitor. So they've done the best of kind of parsing out based on historical precedents on where they think some have more, some have less, and we'll see some departments that, have significant legal increases. It's not because of necessarily new bills, it's just that when we looked at previous reports, they carried most of the legal. So this one we'll continue to monitor to see how kind of well tracking we were, but in the future, I think we can have a lot better clarity on what departments are driving more legal spend. In advertising for, council agenda items that we want to do, we have to put it in the newspaper that, main organics type activity where we're having lots of lawyer conversations to figure those out. Just a little bit better tracking and each department having it rather than just a joint legal budget that everybody uses.
Oh, sorry, I was still looking at trying to find the postage that we
Oh,
were
no,
just
that's
talking
okay.
about.
I just wanted to make sure we had enough money.
So next, is it elections or general assistance?
We go to elections at 110.
Yay, elections! So, advertising line item, which we just discussed, is a new line item in the elections budget. I'm gonna go down this one, it's easier. No changes. Printing of ballots, I did want to mention, there was a small increase because our printers have increased the cost of the printing of the ballots. It's not significant, but I did increase the amount a little bit on that. Advertising, training, I decreased, but I don't know, Charlie had mentioned maybe we might increase that again, where we might be cross-training more people.
I kept the training budget the same on
You
the
did? Okay.
elections piece. I kept it more in the, I think the clerks and the tax
Okay.
changes. So I had kind of no changes here, although I did notice that, Tammy's got a lot of sticky notes. I've read through this budget 4 or 5
I
times
know, I'm looking
now.
over, Tammy's got pink notes flying everywhere.
And one of my sticky notes was I made at one point, I think we got an adjustment for payroll overtime that I decreased by $400, and I think that was just a mistake in my edits, so I think we can bring that back to $4,400.
Yeah, we have,
There's an issue with the actuals
Yeah.
on those line items,
Okay.
which
So I was just,
people are looking into.
yeah,
Okay.
so we've got to get that corrected.
Lorena and Carrie were looking into it because they weren't pulled from the correct accounts during the election
Okay.
process, so it's hard to figure out.
Good, so Ashley will track that one, and we'll either pull my 400 that I pulled back to 4,400, or maybe it'll change.
And we can stay on the election overtime. I just wanted to clarify, the election overtime amounts are for when we use employees, we pull them for election. So it's just the amount of hours that they work over their 8 hours. So if I used Ashley for a deputy registrar, she would get paid overtime for the few hours that she stays after 5.
So it
Okay.
looks like the real increase here is part-time payroll. If I'm reading this correctly, we didn't.
The payroll part-time,
Yeah,
that was the same as last year.
No, it's a
Okay.
rent, what is the
No,
rental?
never mind.
I didn't
'Cause
have any
that's got a
changes.
big ins-
Rental.
no, I was reading it incorrectly, so.
What'd you
So
say,
we got a
Nancy?
lot of-
Sorry.
There's a
What
lot
is the
of
rental?
space
That's the
here.
one that's
Yeah.
going up second.
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, that's.
I was getting to that one. So the rental itself is equipment rental. So we rent 4 DS200 machines for our election for our 4 wards. And they had a significant increase this year for renting. 1,500 each machine, I believe it was, actually. Yeah, per machine. And I would love to say there was another company that we could look into, but there is not. It's the only one that exists where we can rent these machines. So unless the city wants to hand count, we are obligated to pay this amount.
And how much would that cost?
I know it needs to be
Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it would be more than what these machine rentals are, so
Yeah.
it would be days' worth of counting ballots.
Okay.
Do you know how much a machine costs if we were to buy our own?
We can't.
We
It's
can't.
not an option.
Oh,
Nope.
well then, there you go.
The state regulates it.
Yep. It's not an option. Yes.
Goody good.
I mean, it also includes the maintenance of them. They come here
Right.
every election and make sure our machines are running properly. And I will have to admit, the minute I call them, they are here within, they're all around the state. So the minute there's a problem, they're here within 30 minutes of a problem happening. So, and believe me, on election day, that is a huge relief when you have a machine that's not working. So. Sorry, I'm gonna go down through where the changes that I made. Meals was it's not new, I just created a line item for it. We have been paying for meals, but it's been coming out of whatever account that had money in. So office supplies or whatever, there was no account that was created for this. So the meals are, we provide meals for our election staff, meaning our election clerks that come in on election day. We do the lunch and dinner for them, pizza or sandwiches, something small. And I think that was it that had any really significant changes.
The other new lines, the legal mileage, et cetera, those migrated from other accounts as well.
The legal did, yep. Let me explain this one a little bit. So, like, we separated printing and advertising for this, just this specific budget, because the printing in this budget is for printing of ballots. It's not printing for advertising, it's totally 2 different things. And the mileage, that has been added because in the past, our clerks have been using their personal vehicles, and it's quite a distance from here to Mancos Baptist Church when you do it 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. So I suggested we give them mileage for their travel with their own vehicles. It was mentioned maybe in the future that we could maybe use like the code car if it wasn't being utilized. But for now, I mean, it's not much. I think I put like $100 in there. But it still is reimbursement to them, you know, in their time using their gas and own vehicle. Yeah, that's it. Any other questions on that?
No questions? Tammy, no questions?
Where's your Post-it?
I saw her posted there.
You already explained it. You said that the HR and finance were looking into the numbers that you hadn't been allocated.
Yeah, that was when I thought.
That ends my part of it. I'll come sit down.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Fleece vests, they're gonna look nice, those new uniforms.
Yeah, we have done them in the past, but it's actually was a request from one of the residents of Ellsworth, because the person was looking for somebody, a worker from the city, to ask some questions to, and how can we tell who's what when everybody's running around? So we were like, we'll just get some vests and put our name on it with the city logo, and it's cheap and a way to identify ourselves on that day, so. And I don't have to think about what I'm gonna wear that morning at 4 o'clock when I'm like coming in.
I don't know if I missed this, but where does the revenue come in from the election?
Oh, okay. Yeah, good question.
I mean, it's not much,
That's a
but-
great question. So election revenue is when someone comes in and wants to pay for a voter registration list. So if we have a candidate who is running and they want to know who is registered to vote, they have the right to come in and get a list. However, if they've already asked for one in the past, you can only get one over so many years. So if you ask for an additional one, you have to pay for it. So any type of revenue like that, sometimes the political parties will come in and ask for like a USB drive with that information on it. We have to give them the public information and we charge them for it. So that's small revenue, but I mean, we have to put it somewhere. So
Yeah, awesome, thanks.
you're welcome.
It's usually just the cost of the thumb drive or something like that, right?
Cost of the
Or-
thumb drive.
Yeah.
The other list actually is state regulated, so we have to charge them what the state tells us to charge at that time, yeah.
Any other questions? Great, thank you so much, Sue and Tina, for kicking us off. Only 35 minutes.
Oh, you got
and-
one more, sweetheart.
Oh, we have one more? Oh, this is.
A pretty big one.
Big one, sorry.
I will leave though if you really want me to, 'cause
What page is the general?
General assistance is on 152.
general assistance, so for whoever's not familiar with general assistance, it's the assistance is, well, city, I'm trying to say this without it, it's changing. I'm really kind of bummed about this, but I just did this budget, and I just heard from 2 days ago that there's probably gonna be some significant changes. And I was meant to talk to Charlie about this, but I haven't yet. He was right, remember you said you wanted to decrease some of the amounts, I think probably that would be a smart idea, but maybe we can talk about it later. I don't know if you wanna talk about it here, but.
No, it's, maybe we'll come back. Maybe we'll, once we've had a little more discussion time.
Okay.
I listened to some of the news stories as well. There also seems like there could be some, I mean, I don't know if that's passed yet as well. I think it's in the Senate.
No, it is.
But it has passed.
Nope, yesterday, I guess it was as of yesterday, nothing got passed.
Right.
So,
The Senate was back in this morning, and by the time I stopped
I
paying
haven't heard
attention,
anything yet.
I don't know if it had passed.
If it's
So this
okay,
budget's hard because, I mean, we're waiting on some,
if you're all right with it,
funding or
maybe,
no
because there
funding.
is legislative flux on this that would significantly change this, so maybe we put a pin in this. I'm sorry, Tina, I know you were hoping to finish.
it's
tonight.
okay. I mean, I can go over just the things that I think aren't going to change.
Sure.
If we want to do that. So I made an explanation for the payroll because in the payroll line item, with this specific one is, we did combine the clerk amount into the general assistant. So it looks like there was an increase, but it's really the same amount as what I was getting. So I don't want you to think that I put in amount trying to give myself a huge raise. And payroll overtime budget, that is for my assistant. We have to be on call 24/7. So when I'm not available, like on a vacation or holiday, or if I'm sick and she needs to cover, that's for her. Office equipment, there's
May
a
I
change.
butt in here?
Sure.
Can you explain, since I'm a newbie here?
Sure.
A little bit more about the general assistant's role? What are we?
Oh, I'm so
what are
sorry,
we
I should have done that in the
assisting in?
beginning, yeah, sorry.
No, I'm just don't know.
Yeah, general assistance is a program, an emergency-based program that is available to the residents of Ellsworth who have fallen on hard times. So, it's necessities, like your heat and your, electricity and your fuel. It's supposed to be an emergency-based program, however, recently there are no other programs around, so it's kind of become the front line. So, as you've noticed, there's been a significant increase throughout the last few years in my budget because it's due to that. There's been loss of funding throughout the whole state for nonprofit agencies that usually can help these people, and general assistance is pretty much the only thing left for them to utilize currently.
Tina, without getting too into the weeds, just to sort of explain why we would wait and come back after legislative sessions, there's a reimbursement that comes from the state
That part actually is not it. That's not being changed. It's still gonna stay at 70% that I'm aware of. I don't think there was anything. What the issue is there's been some talk about clients only receiving assistance one time a year. That will definitely significantly change this budget. I have clients that they're able to apply every 30 days, so they can come back every 30 days to get assistance if they qualify. I mean, I ask them to do things like they have to look for work, they have to look for housing, they have to apply for food stamps, all of the other things. And if they comply with everything I've asked, then they can get assistance again. This new law that's coming into, well, I'm not sure if it will or not, but will change that. And they may only be able to get assistance once. So that'll significantly decrease the amount of money that we can. It won't stop my work because they still can come back and apply. We just won't be able to give them the money. That's all. Sorry, I should have explained that too. Then there's also talk that they can do it for 3 months. So I don't know where they're gonna go with that. And, moving on. Office equipment, that increased because I had spoke with Jason. I'd like to get the deputy a laptop, so when she's on call, she can bring it home with her, because currently she can't, and she won't be able to do anything without that with her. So it was a $2,500 for a laptop. And then we added an emergency assistance account. This account is not reimbursable from the state. This is new. In the past, I've taken it out of, some of these funds I've taken out of miscellaneous, but I thought it would be better to, for accounting purposes, to create a new line item to explain the monies that are being used for purposes. So, I mean, we have a cooling and warming center usually that pops up in the summer or winter for residents who can come in. And the Inspire Center has graciously allowed us to use their facility if we can foot, like, paying for the people that work it and maybe some water or snacks or whatever. Doesn't happen very often, and I think it happened once last year, once or twice. But I'd like to track to see how much money that we spend on that in a year. And this year, the poor city has fallen on some hard times, and we've had to condemn some homes, make it uninhabitable living space. And when we do that, if there's tenants or if there's animals that need to be placed, we have the ability to place them somewhere for 30 days. And the cost for that would come out of this line item. Bus tickets, shower vouchers, cab rides, anything that is out of the ordinary would also come out of this account. And I think that's it, besides the change that might happen from the state. We added legal services, which everybody did. Any other questions on? Okay.
I have a question, because I want to make sure I understand this. As I go down in your expenses, go down the account, I want to make sure I understand which ones are going out to support individuals and families and which are the costs of the office. So it's page 154 as noted on paper, because it's got the page.
I did put that in my budget explanation. I don't know.
I know, but as I'm looking at the number, but what I'm doing is flipping through pages to make sure I've got it.
Okay.
So you live this. If I walk through it and say like, housing that's paid out to individuals and families.
Oh, I see, because on the actual part, it doesn't.
Right, and that's okay. I'm just going to make a tick mark next to them. Emergency Assistance Fund goes out. Burials and cremations goes out.
Emergency Assistance Fund does not go out.
What is that?
That's the account that I just explained, is like the city will put somebody up for 30 days if their house is deemed.
Right, so I guess I'm not saying it the right way, but this is to help the individuals versus.
It is, but that's not reimbursable.
I'm not saying reimbursable. I'm just
Okay.
saying this is money that goes out to help people versus printing and advertising and e-signatures. And
Yes,
I want to
okay,
make
I got
sure
you.
I've got
Yep.
it right. So office equipment and maintenance is internal for the functionality.
Yes.
But power, heat, miscellaneous expense, food, those all are to support people.
That is correct.
Then telephone. Then
Telephone is support people. That's for people who need a phone
Right.
for emergency services.
Right,
Yep.
and then household and medical. So those are the ones that are helping the individuals versus,
Household medical.
because some of these labels we're seeing in other departments as like the cost of a reimbursable telephone. So I just want to make sure I'm capturing which ones are the
Absolutely,
support of
yes.
people at risk.
Yep.
Okay,
So housing, burials, cremations, power, heat, miscellaneous expense,
yeah,
food,
yeah,
telephone, household, medical,
great.
that's it. Yep.
And all of those, except for the emergency assistance fund, is reimbursable
That
up
is
to
correct.
70%.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
I think we took in about 90, was it 92,000? I
Yes.
think we've been reimbursed about 92,000 this year for GA.
So that will show up as a revenue, oh,
Correct.
that is the revenue. So that revenue is the reimbursement from the state.
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
Tina, I know you're in communication with a lot of other GA departments around the state.
Yep.
Do you have a sense of if this budget increase is fairly similar amongst other towns' GA departments?
Absolutely. It's through the whole state. I actually jumped back on the MWDA bandwagon last month, so I'm back on the board. And we're actually going to have, I don't know, what is it, when you have any municipality who wants to call in and do like a round table? Where they can call in and ask, questions and tell us, how much general assistance they've expended this year and any concerns or questions they have for the board or what they think we should do. And we're open to any type of communication where any GA director can think of any idea to help going forward to help the citizens of the state, We'll take any idea they have. We have a spring seminar coming up, which I think I will be teaching at, and looking forward to that because I've been out of the loop for a couple of years trying to figure out, because it's been so busy here, and trying to figure out how to handle it all, so. We'll have to admit, all the nonprofit agencies around here have been wonderful this year. We have all come together and we've come up with a plan and we're all working together to make sure our citizens are taken care of. This year has been a lot better than last. So.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? I got my blood pressure, I'm gonna go sit back down.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Great. We will, thank you soon, Tina. We'll go to Maura Condon, 101 Communications.
Page number.
101.
Good evening, Maura Condon, Communications Director. So this is a totally new budget for the city. We established this position during this current fiscal year, elevating me from Communications Specialist and Administrative Assistant to the City Manager to now Communications Director. So I worked with looking at trying to establish a budget for this with the support of the City Manager and our finance team. So, and just to kind of go back a little bit and just highlight what my office tries to focus on, it's, managing our city's official communication channels, such as press releases, public announcements. I also handle our social media and our website updates. I try to help communicate our policies, programs, events, and updates to the public, as well as supporting our other departments. One thing I also do in addition to this role is serve as the public access officer, so I help try to oversee our FOA requests, and that will be reflected in this budget as well. So because this is new budget, we don't have any actuals to compare against, so, next fiscal year, we'll have something to work with and kind of dial in on what this budget needs, but this is just the recommendation to start with for this upcoming fiscal year. So do you want me to go through every line item on this, or how would you like to proceed?
I think we're okay. I think just a general conversation. Do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, no, but go ahead.
Yeah, my manager adjustment, there's actually a small mistake on here. I was originally kind of thinking, kind of like we did last cycle, where there's some competitive adjustments and some performance pay that we'd done during the budget cycle in discussion. And when we get to the employee benefits side of things, we can talk a little bit more about, I'm thinking of transitioning from a COLA-based system to more of a performance merit-based system. So I'll wait, we're doing that tonight, so I'll wait there. So actually, I consider more one of our highest performing employees, but we're doing a new process. I'll talk more then. So I do actually need to adjust this back down to department request level 61,800. And now that this is kind of some of my initial analysis, if we do go to a COLA merit, that more would be in that other part of the process to go through the review process and be potentially upgraded there. So that's, thought I made that change, but I must have missed that one.
Charlie,
Yep.
for the people at home, do you want us to say what COLA is?
Oh, cost of living adjustment. And when we get to the employee benefits and Carrie, I'll go a little bit more detail into what the thinking is behind there. That's all right. There was you saw all the sticky notes. And then we increased the training a little bit, just with more being new to the position, and some of the other, kind of a lot of conferences are in the Portland and the southern area, and you'll see that as kind of a theme for a lot of things here is further investment in training. Also, we get Alphon grants for our training. That's a match, so it's like a guaranteed grant on every time we increase training budget. We're actually doubling up on our investment through an Alphon match. So we've really tried to maximize some of those pieces. And I think throughout this budget, you'll see, we had a lot of turnover. And the year before I was here, it was about 20% turnover. And then this last year, we've had a fair amount of turnover, about 10% now. But these are very difficult jobs, but they're also very great public service jobs. And how do we maximize keeping and investing in our employees so we lose that institutional knowledge and start to build and keep our teams here.
I might want to take just one moment to explain the professional services line, because that is just one of the higher requests in this budget. That is for two kind of upgrades, one's an upgrade, and that would be to the city website. I did present this at the December Finance Committee meeting, so I just want to share that with you, that is reflected in the communications budget, not an IT budget. Additionally, in that line is also going to be for FOA tracking software, and that will help the citywide manage FOA requests as they come in. We can assign folks, helps kind of streamline, from start to finish that process and making sure that we're in compliance.
Can I ask
I was curious, how many FOIA requests do we get?
That's challenging to track right now. I do keep an Excel spreadsheet of the ones that come to me. And so, it can be anywhere from just, a couple of months to multiple a month, depending on what's actually going on. Last year, during some of the turnover, there was more FOA requests related to those issues and those topics. We recently just had one that was pretty generic on just the cannabis moratorium, and that was just a simple request. So it really can vary, and this software would actually help track that much more broadly, because depending on the request, we do have the ability to charge depending on how much time and effort goes into that, as well as printing costs.
And my question was similar, following up on John's, because does the city have a policy where regardless of the department, if someone makes a request for information, they let you know, say, someone in Public Works, they want to know X, it goes to you, and
Yes.
you're able to track it?
We do have a policy for that sometime. We just actually had a forward training
2 weeks ago.
just recently. So we're trying to establish that more as a procedure going forward, just so everyone's on the same page. Because sometimes a forward request isn't readily apparent on the outset, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a challenge to recognize as well. And even if it doesn't look like it, we should track those as well. Just any request for a document that exists or
Yeah.
whatever medium it's in. And so the police department itself is different, right? Because they have, things pertaining to court cases or whatever they have going on. But for outside of that, it would be for the rest of the city.
Great, yeah, and I was just kind of you mentioned, there's opportunity potentially to have revenue if it's a significant request, and I think it's after the first 2 hours, you're allowed to charge upwards of $25 an hour plus printing fees, so there could be some revenues there.
Yes.
But considering it's your first year, it's hard to forecast that.
That's correct.
Great, I know some more made a presentation on the website stuff earlier. We did, and they definitely chose the cheapest option, but also look, it's going to be a great upgrade to kind of the ease of use, mobility, style and design. It needed a little bit of a refresh, but her and Jason and Nate, we kicked some tires on some much bigger city website options, but really felt like at this time, this budget, let's, we got a pretty good website, and just a little bit of a refresh would be in order. Kind of some modernizations in the platform at a very reasonable price, and I think it's a good way to move forward.
Absolutely. We've had a wonderful relationship with our current website hosting company, and we'd just like to continue that for now. Yes? Nothing? Okay.
You have something, Deb?
Are you going down line by line right now?
Maybe I'll go through a couple others, just to give some more clarity to some of these lines. So I'm not sure if it's in the same order that I have it in. But we have printing and advertising. This does kind of reflect the city manager printing and advertising budget from the current fiscal year. Since it's still a new position, I've been rather conservative in trying to understand what to allocate money towards until I've had a better understanding of what those dedications and those needs are. Some projects that I've been trying to focus on, we've been recently doing a business guide for the community. That does come out of the economic development budget. The cost of that can help inform me of how, we want to do other guides, like how municipal government works 101 for the public, what we can create and produce on a larger scale. Let's see here, office equipment and maintenance. I would like to purchase a camera so we can produce more audio-visual material. One of the things I'm trying to do with the police department is a recruitment film right now to help them. And so, we have cell phones and those are great and all. The challenge is I have my personal cell phone. So, having a dedicated city camera that not just myself can use, that can create, information that's of better quality and easier to just use and plug into a computer would be beneficial for that. And therefore, in that line, there was originally a request for a drone, but there was a mistake in that, so that should actually be knocked down to $950 for that line item. The PD has a drone, that's why, so if we can try to use theirs, we'll go for that. Let's see, Charlie mentioned training. I'm trying to attend more communications-based trainings. Southern Maine, specifically the Portland area, there is great conversation going around, especially for upcoming website upgrades that we may have to do for ADA compliance, and I'd like to be able to partake in those conversations and network and kind of stay on track with trends and best practices for municipal communications. Subscriptions, that's pretty basic. We just have a budgeting for SurveyMonkey, which is a software platform that we can use for all departments, newspaper subscriptions, and a Canva account just to continue producing materials. Let's see, telephone, that comes out of the joint office line. Conferences and meeting and travel, that just reflects the desire to kind of attend the MMA annual convention as well as a regional communications conference going on in New Hampshire. Let's see. The rest of this is pretty straightforward. Office supplies. I have new to my own office, so that might just need some additional supplies as I get settled in and for just materials for there. And legal, that was just a line that was added to each department. And that could go in case there's any FOA inquiries that I need to run past, legal services. I think that's it. Any other questions?
Great. We will, thank you so much, Maura, and we will move on to Larry, our assessor, on page 49.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
So-
Thanks, guys.
Good evening, Larry Gardner, City Assessor. And I think most people know what an assessor does, but I'll briefly describe it for those who may not fully understand it. The city assessor is the tax assessor. It's primarily appraisal work, real estate appraisal of all the residential and commercial properties, timeshares, everything, land and building. The businesses in town have personal property where they list their equipment that is assessed, sometimes to the surprise of many businesses, and thinking, well, I've paid the sales tax on this. I have to pay a personal property tax every year? Yes. But for the personal property, there are two great programs. One's a reimbursement program of the taxes they actually pay and into the city. That reimbursement, it comes from the state, not the city. And then there's an exemption program where if the reimbursement is for retail businesses, but if you're not retail, the other program is for non-retail, is you can have all your equipment exempted. All you have to do is fill out a form. That's another state program. It's not a local program, but all municipalities in the state, by law, have to provide this program where you would, so if you're a business, you would have a master list of all your personal property equipment, and every year you have to declare if it's any new items and subtract items from that master list so we can update it and not tax it and not have to show it on our tax cards. So real estate, which is considered, well, the real property, land and building, and then the personal property, we track all that, all the transfers, the ownership transfers, the divisions of land, new subdivisions, and we basically appraise everything and update it every year. This year is, the assessing budget's probably gonna have the highest increase I've seen since I've been here. But that's because we're losing my assistant. And what I'm proposing is that I try to find somebody certified as a tax assessor already, because I'm at that age where I'm looking at possible retirement.
No.
And it's not going to be next year or the year after that, but maybe the year after that. So what I'd like to do is set the department up so that we have somebody who can just take my job and know the town, and know all the software, know everything about Ellsworth assessing and valuation, property values, what the market is here in Ellsworth versus someplace else. So that in my budget, you'll see the wages have increased $25,000, because I'm looking at, if I do get, I've actually done 2 interviews, so the advertisement's out there, but the 2 people we've interviewed are not assessors already, and I think I'd really luck out if I got an assessor, but there possibly may be one, so I'd need to pay somebody who's already certified as an assessor more than someone who's not. So that's why the $25,000 extra in this next budget is proposed. And really the two, well, the only other thing that's increasing would be really is training, because each year assessors have to get recertified. So there'd be additional training. That's a $300 increase over the previous year. And there's two other green up buttons or arrows. One's for legal, so we're separating out the legal, every department. And then and that's $1,000 that wasn't in there the year before. And printing and advertising, that's $500, which wasn't in a line item for the budget last year for assessing. And the other things are going down a little bit. And they're not big ticket items, but, so that's where I'm gonna be. Hopefully, I would like to find someone is certified as an assessor. There is one who has applied. I haven't interviewed this person yet, but I don't know. This particular person also has other assessing jobs for some small towns, and I don't know if I would want the person full-time here, and not every other day, and 40 hours a week here. So I don't know if this person is going to be able to do that, but we'll see. And maybe some other assessor. There's assistant assessors in Maine who are certified as an assessor, but they're in an assistant assessor position. So the advertisement's been out for a couple weeks, I think. And we've already had over 20 people apply, which is decent. And I've had 2 interviews, and both of those people, the second person I interviewed just today is a real estate appraiser. So that's better than not. Someone who knows real estate values would be great. But the first person I interviewed had a very superb communicative skills.
And we'll definitely keep you all updated on this. I think, to your point, Larry, on the price here, on depending on where that lands, I know we're fast-tracked the budget cycle this year to align with the schools, but if there's a minor adjustment, because we feel like, we're going more with an assistant versus a certified assessor, we can kind of bring that down. But are there any other kind of questions on the assessing budget? Or?
I think is there potential that you could hire someone as an assistant, but they would be able to, by the time you were to retire, kind of come up to speed and get their assessors?
Possibly.
certification?
Possibly. I know when I got into the assessing field, I was actually working for a mass appraisal company, and if you know real estate and you can answer those questions, then the only thing you have to really worry about is the law. And I lucked out when I first took there isn't an exam. It's actually, you can take a whole week of course and then take the exam at the end of the week. And I lucked out and passed that the first time, but it's hard. There's 75% fail the first time. And it is difficult to learn all that stuff quickly, but it could be done. So I'm hoping that if we can't get an assessor, that's what will happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, on to the library, $7.99 with Sarah. Oh, we're over 800 this year. Over 800.
There's so much flipping. All right, I am Sarah Lesko, Library Director. Our budget has not changed much this year. The biggest change is that we're moving some funds from part-time to full-time. So we have a retirement. Charlene Clemens, our cataloger and genealogist of 30 years, is leaving. I've asked her to stay on a few more months. I keep bumping it back by a month, but we will hopefully replace her position with a full-time position. And then we've reduced the building maintenance line in anticipation of pushing off some of the projects onto a renovation. This year, we've had the most problems with our HVAC and various bathroom plumbing issues. So we've taken care of some things this year. We're also having some tree work done. But we're hoping that next year we can kind of hold off, make do, and roll projects into one big one. Almost everything else pretty much stayed the same. There was a little bit of fluctuation, but very close.
Just a brief recap of the ARPA commitment that we made. Was that all capital improvement, or are there operational line items that those sort of pad out this year that might come up next year?
No, so those are capital. It is for the sewage grinder and a replacement sewage grinder, a bathroom drain in our women's restroom because we get floods quite often and there's nowhere to put the water, so we just scoop it. Yes, I know. And also a new a heat pump hot water heater. Yeah, so that's actually, we're trying to get the work scheduled for beginning of April. We will probably have to close the building for a few days while we do not have any working restrooms. But yes, that's coming up soon.
It's exciting.
It is very exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Also note, Sarah has one of the leanest budgets here. We mentioned it in our finance committee meetings. All department heads, I asked if they could kind of do a cut exercise and show me what that would look like. Not that we would necessarily go through with it on every piece, but to kind of see if you had to, where would it be? Hers was the best, at least in terms of categorizing, but you could also see how lean it already was. I know that library.
It was a lot of red zeros.
It was, in the cost center analysis too, you could see some library cuts from previous years back. I know that they're still kind of coming back from, but see, it's hard to say whether Jim or Sarah is cheaper, but.
Well, Jim does a lot of work for us. He's actually fixing one of our bathroom problems right now. Thank you, Jim. We love him. He's worth every penny. Yeah, any questions? I think the only thing that hasn't really been included in this budget, unless Sarah has included anything in capital, I'm starting to actively apply for grants this year in the hopes of getting some renovation funds, and we might need city matching funds. We do have some from the library that we can use, but depending on how many opportunities we have to apply for, we could use some matching funds. It looks like congressionally directed spending this year is still not opening, so.
And what was there is currently not funded, so.
Yes, so, I don't think we should put all of our eggs in that basket,
It was a beautiful
unfortunately.
basket.
It was a beautiful basket, but, yeah, we're moving on.
Just to clarify, for the renovations that would be budgeted under capital improvement.
Yeah, I think the previously, Sarah and I used to be doing great work on a substantial upgrade to the library that was hopefully was going to be our big congressionally directed spending request this year. I think it still will be once, and if that opens up, so we're tracking towards that. If it doesn't, we'll have to consider some potential additional options. And we'll talk capital, a little later on, as we mentioned earlier. I think there's going to be some discussion on whether we, have to start thinking about funding a little bit this cycle, or do we want to, keep all of this in the bond ban cycle? A lot of the cities and towns kind of do that. You have your general budget cycle, and then you have the bond ban cycle for your bigger capital expenses. But also considering a few of these maybe in the smaller capital areas, if we're okay with where the mill's at, with where the levy's at, once the school department kind of comes in with their budget, do we want to invest a little more, FY26 dollars into a larger capital expense and put that capital piece, all in a single year tax item. So this budget, in some ways similar to last year, where we pulled out really anything of larger capital, but last year we kind of put all that into ARPA. This year, to stay as lean as possible, kind of putting all that into a potential bond cycle. But maybe some things for consideration that we don't put in there if we really feel like, July 1st, we want to start investing in that, we can consider that too.
So the revenue from other towns, I noticed it stayed kind of static. Is that something that could be increased, or is that based on just the number of people that come in and use the services?
We'll see this year. So this was actually the first time we've increased that request from other towns, but in anticipation of possibly losing a town or two because of that increase, that's why it's kept the same.
Interesting.
Because it's, those town meetings are so fun.
Sorry.
It's okay, we have really good support from patrons who love the library and they speak out in favor of us, so that helps. It's nice to have friendly faces in the room, but yeah, that's why it's flat. We're hoping we get a little bump in that, but I'm not counting on it.
Any other questions?
Can you just tell me what electronic collection is?
That's e-material, so
Oh.
like e-books, e-audiobooks, e-magazines, yeah. All right,
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. We'll go to
Thank you, sir.
Human Resources and Carrie next, page 165. 165.
Thanks for all the library folks for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you.
That's nice.
They're always so quiet. I think it must be because they spend so much time.
I feel now like we should have asked some challenging questions, but. You talked about a sewage grinder. I mean, my evening is made.
Thanks, Sarah.
Good night.
Thanks. Good, I'm tired, but good, yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Good evening, everybody. Carrie Taylor, HR Manager. So just gonna go
What
over.
page are we on? Sorry.
165.
Sorry. Good. All right, so just a quick overview of the HR department for the city. We work to support the city's workforce by overseeing all aspects of employee relations, benefits administration, recruitment, and professional development. The department ensures compliance with employment laws and city policies, facilitates hiring and onboarding processes, and provides guidance on personnel matters. Additionally, HR assists with performance evaluations, safety programs, and workplace policies to foster a positive and productive work environment. We prioritize employee well-being and organizational efficiency, and the department plays a vital role in maintaining a strong and effective municipal workforce. In the past fiscal year, the HR department has made some significant strides in enhancing organizational efficiency and employee support, bolstered by the addition of the new HR specialist. Some key accomplishments include the successful coordination of a 2-day adaptive leadership workshop and extensive revisions and updates to the personnel ordinance, which has helped ensure compliance and alignment with best practices. Additionally, HR has spearheaded a successful proposal to introduce an additional health insurance plan, expanding employee benefits. The implementation of a structured performance review process was another major achievement made possible through collaboration with the city manager. This helps to ensure a more consistent and effective evaluation system. The department has also played a critical role in recruiting and onboarding 15 new full-time hires to support the city's growing workforce. These initiatives reflect HR's commitment to fostering professional development, improving policies, and enhancing employee well-being, all of which were greatly supported by the additional employee in the department. For this year, I didn't have any significant changes to my budget. I did propose, other than the professional development line. So there was a significant increase to that, mostly because we did have that adaptive leadership workshop last fall, and it was really successful, and we would like to continue with that initiative and offer those, that training and that type of development to more employees. So other than that, I didn't have a lot of changes, but I'm happy to go down through each line if you'd prefer for me to do so.
My manager adjust was to increase that professional development even more. Again, it's part of the investment in the employee and culture here. And the fact that will be matched another twofold with the Alphon grant piece. We had a lot of success with that initiative. We've sort of carried that work forward internally, both with a lot of my professional trained background in management, leadership, and decision sciences. But it's obviously incredibly taxing on Carrie, Lorraine, and myself that we've been holding monthly meetings in this category, but we really want to have at least one other training for that same cohort that was a cross collaboration of managers, city councilor, and line staff, union staff from all across the organization. We've sort of started that work internally in our own management team, but I'd really like to expand that to some other counselor cohort. Tabitha, I know you're here. Maybe I'm getting you involved, maybe Steve as well, in this next cohort with a management counselor sort of cycle, but then also some of the groups that have already been involved, and then some additional management training that I know carries not just on the adaptive leadership and culture building side of things, but some technical trainings that we really feel like we don't have better tracking and kind of offerings for our employees. Again, goes into the kind of that investment in the employee category.
Yeah, I heard really good things about that training. So good investment.
The payroll services, the paychecks, that's just migrated into this account, it was run
That's
through somebody
correct.
else?
Yep, it was part of finances, I believe, Ashley, is that correct? It was part of finance's professional services, and they've broken out and put it into HR, which makes sense because we do process the payroll weekly, so.
HR was the not beneficiary, I guess, but the victim of, some of
There we
this.
go.
One of the bigger ones on the legal payroll services, side of things. Also, you'll notice a tuition reimbursement line that I also added. Potentially that I think would go to our HR specialist to help her start the path of going towards an HR degree and in exchange for additional years of city service. So one of our Rockstar employees and doesn't currently have a degree, but having some degrees myself, I'd put her against the people with the fanciest degrees, but want to kind of match to a degree that would help both the organization, increase the longevities to promote or to decrease turnover, but also keep that institutional knowledge, and at the same time too, after their commitment of service to the city of Ellsworth is over, to help them kind of in the next stage of their journey. I think that's it's great for everybody in that category. We have a tuition reimbursement program, so really want to start taking better use of it.
So, and I'm not sure if it's still the same, but if you were to go get your certification or a degree or something, and you left the city within a 5-year time period, you have to pay a portion of that back to,
That is
when you
correct.
leave.
Yep.
So,
Yep, that is still in effect.
okay.
Correct, and we have another one of these, it's just 2, I believe, this year in finance, which we'll be talking today. I know Carrie and I have, there's some vagueness in the way the program is designed, and there is that piece of it. I want to be a little more, I might come back to the council to kind of redesign like what that means, on how the managers approve, the sort of curriculum needs to be engaged in, and, kind of really putting together a plan for what that means. But it feels like just a win-win-win, and we've got some great people here that I think could really benefit, both in Ellsworth, the city benefiting, and then kind of moving beyond too. So really excited about expanding that initiative, and feel like we'll start with a couple here and get some good success stories, and could become a good recruitment tool for some of the best talent in the region too, to start coming here and staying here.
Carrie, I have a clarifying question.
Sure.
As we've been going through this, most departments' allocation for legal has been $1,000, and yours is $25,000, with a really big disclaimer about what might happen with higher than expected. I assume it's just the nature of the department.
So I'm glad you asked that question, and I probably should have clarified for you. So the reason it's so large is because the collective bargaining agreement charges were considered for HR. Where this is new to us, we're kind of feeling this out, figuring it out. We did have some preliminary discussions about separating that out into the departments that are actually under collective bargaining agreements. HR is not part of a union, so, but I think it's because I play such a large role in that process. But we have talked about, individually separating it out, the legal fees to the departments who are actually being, their contracts are actually being negotiated. So we currently have 5 unions in the city, and so it is something that I'm not sure where we land. For right now, it's in here, and it's sort of up in the air on how we're going to proceed going forward. But, and some of those costs are personnel, because I do have a lot of personnel-related things that we do have to go through legal for. So, does that answer?
I'm glad to hear it's collective bargaining and not the other end of what might be legal.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
How many are we negotiating next year?
Currently, right now, it's 2. And then we will be, next year, none. Because we did 3, we did fire, highway, and wastewater last year for 3-year contracts. And then currently, for this year's police in the clerk's unit. And then
So in 2025.
2025.
So do we even need that much money in there? Because if there's no collective bargaining, then you probably could reduce that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Excellent point.
I have a note, there was email correspondence that went back and forth, and we just did not take that down yet, so.
Okay.
I did make a note, we're gonna bring that back down.
Good work, team.
Get that red pen out.
Team effort.
Great. Any other questions for Carrie on this one? All right, we will switch to employee benefits, which I believe is also Carrie. We're going to go to 119.
Okay.
This is a big one.
All right, so I'm just going to kind of provide a quick overview of each one of these benefits. And I do want to mention that there is a mistake under the workers' comp section, which is 100% my fault, and I do apologize. The income protection benefit narrative was put in under the workers' comp section, so I apologize for that. We are going to correct it, and we'll get you updated information for that. But if you see the workers' comp thing, it talks about income protection, which is a short-term disability program. So, okay, so on your first page, and I'm just going to pull it up so I can see what you're looking at. So employee benefits, of course, encompass health insurance, retirement, FICA taxes, and some of the smaller benefits that we offer to our employees. So looking at I'm sorry, my page numbers seem to be a little bit off. I apologize. It's, there we go, benefits. All right. Thank you. Aha, thank you. Okay, I'm like, I was in the elections budget. We don't need to do that again. Okay. So health insurance, it's pretty self-explanatory. We offer 2 plans for employees, and employees have the choice to choose which plan they would like to enroll in. The employee percentage of the premium does vary between union and non-union employees. Each union is a little different, and those do change typically each fiscal year according to the union contract. But we did budget for a estimated 8% premium increase. Now, that health insurance is on a calendar year, so we kind of budget, currently right now, we know what the cost is gonna be from July until the end of December. In January, we typically get the information in November of what the premiums, if there will be a change, if it will increase. So we budget that 8% increase is budgeted from January to June of '26. So the first 6 months are stable because we have that information. But where it's calendar year, it makes it a little tricky. For January of 2025, the health insurance premiums did increase 7%. In 2024, they increased 5.5%. So it varies. I mean, in 2023 was a 5% increase. So yep. We just try to use that historical data to try to do the best we can with that. Any questions on the health insurance? All right, so FICA taxes, Social Security, and Medicare is pretty self-explanatory. Main State Retirement, so this is our pension plan. Excuse me, it's not Main State Retirement anymore. It's Maine Public Employees Retirement System, or also known as Maine PERS. So Maine PERS is, a pension plan, and the state sets those rates. We currently have 2 plans. There's a special 2C plan for public safety employees, and then a regular plan for non-public safety employees. And the state sets those rates on a fiscal year calendar, so that is helpful for us with budgeting purposes. The current budgeted amount is with the rates that the state has set for FY26. Mission Square Retirement is our other insurance plan, retirement plan that we offer to employees. It's a 457 deferred compensation plan. We offer various ranges on city match for that. So it does depend on whether you're union or not, and it depends. For non-union employees, there's a range for the match they can receive based on years of service. The longer you're here, based on the cafeteria plan, you could purchase more of a match on that. So it does vary between everybody quite a bit. We also offer a retirement, make sure I'm in the right thing. I skipped over, I'm looking at my sheet, I apologize. I skipped over the HRA, which used to be Group Dynamics, it's now Flores. Group Dynamics was purchased by Flores. HRA is a health reimbursement account, which is provided to employees that are in the PEMAQUID plan. Employees in the higher, more expensive insurance plan that we offer are not provided with the health reimbursement account. These funds are used for prescription drug costs or to help bridge the gap between the deductible. So if you have employees in this plan, it's a $5,000 a year deductible for single insurance and $10,000 a year for family. So they're provided the HRA to help bridge that gap. And then workers' compensation is pretty self-explanatory. The budget here is just based on previous year's costs. We use Maine Municipal Association for our workers' comp insurance. There's the Mission Square, I already talked about that. The COLA merit pay is something that, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Charlie, or if you want me to.
Yeah, I can happy to jump in here. So last year we did around 100,000 in COLA for the non-unionized staff. I think upon arrival doing an organizational analysis, one of the things I thought was interesting, and that a lot of employees mentioned, was like, I haven't gotten a pay adjustment in many years. Or there's a merit pay notification in our ordinances, but nobody's given me a performance review. And that was kind of systemic here. It was like, well, okay, we need to realign that. I'm a big believer in kind of setting metrics and standards and holding folks accountable, and also myself accountable, I think. So we've, at great cost to Carrie and myself and others, we've now implemented, I think in a previous discussion, we even put it in the ordinance on a new performance review process, which is kind of the first step of that. We've set SMART goals with every single one of the managers, and we have a new kind of performance rubric, a 6-month check-in for that, and then sort of an annual review cycle. However, there is a level of like punitiveness to performance reviews too, especially when it's just, there's a employee engagement side, but when it's attached to pay, it can be a big plus, and also helps institutionalize the performance review process because, if it's a performance review process has no connection to pay, nobody really, it's the last thing on the list for the manager. I've got all these other things I want to get there. If it's attached to your annual increase, your employees will demand their performance review because it's as much good for them as it is for the manager. However, at the same rate as last year, if we were to go to a performance merit pay system at the same level, it would actually be inherently punitive because, in an ideal world, a set amount of employees, everybody would, I think I did some analysis here, about 40 to 50% would be in the meets expectations. You'd have nobody below expectations, and you'd be eligible for that COLA increase, 2.9%. For those that are in the exceeds expectations category, it could be potentially 30 to 40%, 4 to 7%, and then for that kind of top 10 highly exceeds expectations, could be in the 7 to 10% kind of range. If you were just at the same level as we were at last year, just by the nature of those distributions. A certain amount of employees who are meeting expectations are doing just fine. Meeting expectations, as Lorena, our HR specialist, like the vast majority of us are going to be in that category, potentially myself included. And if you go to performance pay and you stay at the same level, some of those folks, even that are meeting expectations, aren't even going to reach their COLA level. So felt a little bit more of an investment in our employees so that the performance review process is stickier and more institutionalized, but also has incentives for employees to that are really knocking it out of the park that year to have an incentive for increased pay and again stay with the organization, really feel like their merit is being valued in ways that, especially upon arrival, felt like everybody got the COLA or didn't. I think there were some years where there wasn't, and there was no there was no process for these pieces. So to me, there's and it works in converse too. I know as part of the system, we've talked to legal about it. We'd have to come back probably with an ordinance or to the adjustment of how the merit pay works previously, but with a little more detail on how that process would work, both from a legal perspective, but also from a fairness and an equity perspective, that it's 18 direct reports. Sarah and I are figuring out a more equitable distribution of those 18 direct reports right now, so that it's not just my opinion that kind of judges this. It could be a council involvement to some level. We reviewed kind of a performance review process. Managers would be able to nominate a set amount of their employees. This is the way we did it in the state of Massachusetts for merit pay. I know Sarah has also come from a merit pay system as well, so they're to really establish a pretty robust process for that. And then also for myself as well to have potentially, so Lorena would be able to give us some review of Carrie in terms of how she's doing as a manager. That would help inform my potential performance review process for Carrie. And the same thing for myself, that probably won't have time this year, but next year I'm kind of the only merit pay performance review. It's baked into my contract right now. But that next year, sure, you guys have your opinion of how well I'm doing. I have my opinion on how well I'm doing. That's one part of the process. But having a process for the managers to report to me, to have a system that they can kind of report up on things that I'm doing well at, things I may not be doing well at, that can also inform your decisions. So when done really well, I think it helps promote employee retention, it helps promote standards. Hopefully nobody's in the, not meeting expectations, but in those categories too, that you're not eligible for increased pay if you're below expectations. And in fact, that triggers a different part of the process. I hope to almost have no employees in that category, but that piece as well too, that we shouldn't be continuing to invest in employees who aren't meeting expectations. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. So moving on, the next item is the Retirement Health Savings, or RHS. This is a retirement, obviously, retirement health savings plan that is offered to police, fire, and highway only. This is a contractual benefit. It's negotiated every year. Currently, I did include the city match that we are paying on this. So it's on all earnings that the employee makes. The employees also contribute to it, but it's something that we had based the budget on estimated FY '26 earnings using those percentages that are in the union contracts. So it does kind of help us get a little bit more accurate with knowing what those amounts are going to be. The next thing is paid family medical leave. This is a new state program that employers with the size of the city of Ellsworth, we have the choice. We can either split. It's a 1% payroll tax, I guess you could call it. It's kind of what I've been calling it, but it's 1% on all employee earnings. We have worked with our employees to split that. The employee is paying half and we are paying half. So that's just to account for that.
Carrie, is that all employees, or is it, are the union included in that number as well?
They are included in that number, yeah. So we're.
Seems low, but.
It's, well, because,
That was the impact.
I'm sorry?
I was surprised the impact was only 40,000, but I guess that.
Yeah, I can check it to make sure. I mean, numbers aren't my strong suit, so I will check. But just to make sure. But yeah, that was with the 0.5%, but I will check it. And then group life insurance. So we have, for employees that are eligible for the cafeteria plan, so any non-union employee, they're allotted so many points for benefits each year, and the longer you're here, the more points you accrue. And they can use their points to purchase different benefits. So this life insurance is for those employees that have used their points for life insurance, and the city pays the monthly premium instead of the employee paying it and it coming out of their wages. So of course, union employees have access to the life insurance, it's just they pay for it themselves. So that's how that works. Any questions on that? Because I know the cafeteria plan concept is a little unique. And then the next thing, unemployment insurance. So this is a bit of a jump. And FY '24, we are a, sorry, I have to think of the term, direct reimbursable employer.
Self-pay.
So what that means is we do not pay like an unemployment insurance each month. We pay only if someone is eligible for and receives unemployment. So with that being said, it is, I think I underfunded last fiscal year because the prior one before that, we did not have a significant amount of people collecting unemployment. We didn't really pay out much. We did pay out a little bit more in FY '25. We already have. And those circumstances are a bit difficult to predict. So that we did increase the budget to just try to account for that. And I mean, ideally, it would go down. Hopefully, if things are running better, but it is a bit tricky with that one. So we just increased to reflect. And then cafeteria plan. So what this is a medical services reimbursement program. It's an internal thing, and that's for those non-union employees that get the cafeteria points. They can, we maybe should update the name of it, because what it is it's for medical or dental reimbursements that are not covered through the health insurance. So typically what we see mostly is prescription eyeglasses, because our medical insurance does not cover that for employees, does not cover contact lenses. For the dental insurance, orthodontic stuff isn't covered, of course. So employees that have this could, if you use your points to purchase $200 worth of medical reimbursement each year, you could, if you paid $150 for eyeglasses, you bring the receipt in, we reimburse you the $150 for the glasses. This is something that does not roll over. It's a use it or lose it type of benefit. But
So Carrie, these numbers here, are we sure that water and wastewater is not part of these numbers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We did, thank you for asking, but we did we did do that this year, so we do have some numbers that they are included, but now there's a spreadsheet that's attached to this. I know this book is huge. In the back of this, there's a spreadsheet that has all of the benefits together, and water and wastewater are in that spreadsheet, but they are not in this group here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Carrie said she's not a nut. I couldn't disagree more. She was part of the crash budget team last year, and was, we slimmed down that team a little bit this year and Carrie was still part of it. She did an excellent job last year of uncovering some pieces like that, over $100,000 that the city was under budgeting for multi-years for overtime. They were budgeting for the federal taxes on overtime. It's just something Carrie uncovered, so we were able to kind of actually budget for the amount of overtime and the taxes that would entail. That was one of the pieces. The water, wastewater, that enterprise account, ensuring that those folks are not included in the general government side of things, that they're on the enterprise side of things. So, and then we also brought back last cycle, but it's included here, is including all of the employees' benefits, their salary amounts. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. That's something that used to happen when Tammy had her binders there, and I noticed that it fell off. They stopped publishing the city staff salaries, benefit amounts, et cetera, for a multi-year period of time. But we've really brought back that transparency and accountability. This is the Peach budget, and they deserve to know every piece that's in it. And this is a ton of work, these spreadsheets, to keep them tracked and updated. And thank you very much, Carrie. You do an excellent job here.
Yeah, thank you. And I also wanted to mention, too, this is something that we had discussed previously about the city taking some time to do some shopping around for other health insurance, medical insurance options out there. I did work with Clerk Insurance to look into that. Unfortunately, our current loss ratio for our medical insurance is over 100%, and has been for the last, well, I shouldn't say for the last year, it has been over 100%. Prior to that, it was in the high 90s. So what that means is the amount that we're paying in on our insurance premiums, we are spending that, actually more than that. So it is not currently in our best interest to go out to market to try to find insurance any cheaper, because we probably wouldn't be successful with that, or at least especially not keeping the same quality of insurance. I think it's incredibly important that we maintain the quality of coverage for our employees, something that they have been afforded for a long time, and it is important. So, but I just wanted to mention, because that is something that I had said that I would do, and I did. It's just, right now, I think what we would need to do is work on getting that loss ratio down to something where we could go out to market and potentially save some money. But right now, it's probably best for us to stick where we're at with the health trust.
I'm looking at the 21% decrease in the HRA, the florist. Is that because folks decided to go with a different plan, and so that's...
Correct, yep, because we did have some employees switch to the other plan, so they no longer get the HRA. Yep.
Do you have a sense if they're, or maybe it's not been long enough, but if they're happier with that plan? It's working better?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Actually, great question. I recently heard from an employee that had made the switch, that had a medical procedure done, that paid I think it was under $100 for something that would have cost somewhere around like 5 to 6 on the other plan, out of pocket, if they had exhausted their HRA, but they had. So that was the only feedback I've gotten so far, but yes, that person was incredibly pleased and very happy that they were able to enroll in the other plan, saved them a significant amount of money. But I haven't heard any other feedback, but it is probably worth something that, HR can maybe ask some employees just to see if they're finding a benefit. But I think that they do. For the most part, any of the employees that made that switch were on that plan in the past, so they already kind of had a really good understanding of what the difference was. But we didn't have a significant amount of people change, which is also interesting. I think it's good. I think it's a good option. It's good to offer more than one plan because it gives people, they can do what's best for their situation, so.
Any questions, Carrie? Thank you so much, Carrie. We'll switch over to finance, which is on 143. 143 with Nate and Ashley.
I'm here. I'll wait for you guys to change the page. Look at us, March 13th.
Right?
It's a whole different year. I had to tell Charlie earlier this week, as he was kind of stressing over the fact that the budget book wasn't 100%, which, if you know Charlie, he likes perfection. I had to remind him that it is only March 13th. I started exactly a year ago, March 11th, 2024. We've come a long way. I take partial credit to that only because I have an excellent team between myself, Ashley, Deb, and Leah. I couldn't do it without them. And when it comes to this awesome budget book, definitely the help of Mr. Nate in the IT department. So we'll kind of look a little bit at the finance department budget that's in front of you. Obviously, we've discussed the interest and the lien notice costs and the revenue, which, like was mentioned before, should probably be in the tax budget, only because obviously that's their direct cost. So the revenue, like I said, is sitting in the finance budget right now. But everything else, if you look down at the expenses, everything else pretty much went down. The only areas that I increased, ironically enough, when you reconcile the checking accounts, you notice things like bank fees that weren't accounted for last budget cycle. Those are credit card fees for accepting credit cards. So that obviously had to be budgeted for. And then obviously we have printing and advertising and legal, which we already discussed. I don't think I need to bring that up again. The payroll full-time is lower only because last year we had budgeted for a finance manager, which we didn't end up going with. So that's the reason why the budgeted number from last year is higher than this current budget request. So on that note, I will open up any questions or discussion.
I'll just note a quick on the manager, just two things here. One is this is the second piece of the tuition reimbursement. I'm hoping to work with Ashley on getting her accounting degree, and I think that would be an enormous benefit to the city. And in many ways, she seems like she already has an accounting degree. She's one of the hardest working people in show business here. I rely on her so much, and
Ashley's great. She's wonderful.
Well, I think the accounting degree is important, both to, I think, help upskill her in our policies and processes and procedures. I think it's also important to keep her around for 5 years. As mentioned previously in like the cost center analysis, that, you look on FY 2024 actual is $484,000 with a smaller department. We did a lot of accounting professional services to deal with the fact that there was a lot of turnover in the department, and there wasn't a great team there to keep track of financials. And it wasn't just that specific line item that's important. So to me, the accounting piece is important. But we also, during that time, we had somebody with an accounting degree, but the kind of turmoil in that department, we're able to keep them. It's, the accounting piece is important, but keeping really good talent is, I think, even more important, especially in this place. This is one that I would hope upon my departure from being city manager that some things that didn't happen last time, like when Tammy left, sadly, the kind of wheels fell off that piece, that absolutely critical one. And, I'd hope that there'll be, this next time around, we can just stabilize that so well that that will never happen again. That's another piece for the addition of 15,000 for the hiring of a consultant to help us with some municipal budgeting policies and procedures realignment. I've said before, Tammy kind of wrote the book on finance for the city of Ellsworth, and it kind of got put on a shelf for 4 or 5 years, and we're rewriting it now. But I've been working a lot for free with Sue Lassard, the Bucksport town manager, on and she's been helping our team kind of upskill. She's retiring in June. She didn't reach out to me about this, but she's saying she's considering kind of helping other cities in town, and she likes things. I would potentially want to see if she could join us to help, who doesn't have to deal with the day-to-day, hey, Ashley, get me this, hey, this, and can kind of just help solidify our finance policies and procedures. I think that would be, in the near term, yes, 15,000, but over the long term, having the most perfect, best budgeting policies and procedures in the state of Maine. I think we're getting closer with this book and some of the stuff we're already doing. As I told Ashley and the team, I think next year is going to be the one that I want to submit for awards because.
I couldn't tell if you were kidding or if they're actually awards.
Yes.
Oh, they're awards.
There
Yeah.
are awards? Okay.
I think they used to win them around
I
here.
am all for it.
And if not, he would create them.
We have a plaque in the finance.
Are we in?
Yeah.
2.
Well, who's counting?
That's a fun award.
But who's counting?
If anybody's gonna count, it's gonna be the finance department. That kind of is their job. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a pretty critical investment. It's one of my SMART goals was to kind of solidify the institutional gains we started making last year in the finance department. So I'm very proud of this team, but want to continue to work.
So I have a question about the budget.
Yeah.
Or maybe you guys can tell me. So the checking interest, I know you have interest on here for $75,000, but that's for the tax
The liens and
interest,
taxes.
right? So where's the checking interest that we receive from the sweep account?
Those are, Charlie said it wasn't fair for the finance department to show that on their
Sure
budget
it
solely,
is.
so it's reflected as other income. I'm just being honest.
I don't think it's
Sure
I had
it
it in
is.
there, and he's like, I don't think it should be shown then. So there's.
Oh, it's somewhere else?
As other revenue for the sweep
So
account.
it's not in the city manager budget.
Yeah, we.
Oh, yeah, okay.
How much is it? I'm curious.
300,000?
That's not a lot.
Trust me, I'm not gonna let that one.
I just
slide.
felt it. So that's to me was something that underinflates the like. Wow, this department's super cheap. It's like, well,
It's fair.
you collect $300,000 for
Yep.
the interest is coming in. Says a former finance.
Trying to get one little piece of the pie, and he got all up in arms
We
about
have
it,
to do
so I had
the
to
daily
move it out to
journal entries for that
other
interest,
revenue.
so it should be.
I let you all keep financial services revenue and the interest in the.
Yeah, the financial services revenue, just to explain for anyone who needs clarification, that's for the wastewater and water departments for us doing their upsell, the financial services that we provide to them, since they're enterprise accounts.
Credit card fees as income to offset the bank fees that are charged in credit card payments. Do we charge credit card fees when people, because I thought the bank fees reflected credit card charge payments.
There isn't a way to charge that because they're already being charged a fee. And that's like the terminal fees, and then they have like interest, but we don't keep any of that. That doesn't go to us at all.
I see. Oh, we're paying, the
Yeah.
bank fees are for the use of
Yeah.
credit card processing software and things like that, okay.
We also went. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we went to a system that gets points too, right?
Yes.
So that was one of the other things.
For
We
the
have
credit card.
all these charges. I was like, do we have a points? We weren't. So now we get points. That's another little extra. One of the reasons that we thought of this was in the previous reconcile, we kept having this weird thing we couldn't figure out what this charge is for. And oh, at one point in time, they stopped paying the credit card bill on time. So that was, one of the fun parts of the reconcile. It's like, what's this weird charge that kind of comes out of nowhere? Oh, not paying the credit card on time. So paying credit cards on time, we're not incurring those costs, and we're getting points for our credit cards, so some of these
Love the
fun.
points. Love the points.
I try to get like a Marriott card, and then we can go on big trips, but
I assume it's airfare and you were,
I think it's just cash, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
would be the mature thing.
yeah.
That would go under miscellaneous revenue,
Miscellaneous revenue, yeah.
Okay.
and not under city manager.
City manager vacation? No? Oh, okay.
Any other questions when it comes to finance? Otherwise, we can move to the next section.
Yeah, we're gonna go
Which-
to legal services, which is on 180, or 190.
Which I know everyone's flipping there right now, but
Oh, yeah.
you'll notice that legal services, since we moved everything out of the legal services account and into individual departments, all you see is a bunch of zeros.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what they're talking about with legal, other than all of it has been distributed to the different departments.
It would be helpful to see a sum of legal from every single other department, just to compare.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. You can do like a legal sum.
I have a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's there, somebody's got it.
Everything moves around, you can grab the desktop.
And if people are watching you on your computer.
Yeah. I don't know if I can move this
Not that
without.
15 zeros aren't helpful, but.
Here we are. So this is what it is yearly broken out.
It's not popping up on the screen, but you can just voice it over.
Okay, so code for the yearly is $697. Fire, $17,078. Harbor, $3,079. Highway, $575. The library is $3,364. Municipal insurance is $57,697. Police is $31,820. Public Works is $27,714. Sewer and wastewater treatment is $25,435. Transfer station is $15,27. Water is $16,504.
Is that the legal?
Is it
That's
insurance?
insurance. Oh, I thought we were on legal.
Oh, so
Yeah,
are we
we-
doing legal or insurance?
Legal.
That was asking
Oh, I'm
about
sorry. I
legal.
thought
That's
we
why
were
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, why is there?
Yeah, Jerry's face is like, I was like, oh, what if?
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about insurance. I'm sorry. Don't listen to
And-
Well,
well, and
maybe
the-
not for tonight, but maybe all those other things will be teased out to other accounts. It'd be
Well,
helpful
we
to
will
see
be talking
the.
about insurance next.
Yeah, and we can
You
get
see what I'm
you,
saying? Just-
we have those,
Steve, go.
those legal collections just for this year. We can put that in a note maybe for, to bring back to council, just so I guess.
Yeah, but I think just looking at the totals, like it was budgeted at 70,000. What's the comparable? What do they all add up to?
So we're in the several hundred thousand.
We can keep that in there and just kind of, it won't be tracked into the budget itself, but it'd just be kind of basically, here's the total aggregation of legal
Yeah,
costs for
compare.
the city for the year. You can do that.
Insurance?
All right,
174, I think, for insurance? Yeah, 174.
Because
And we've
you guys
already-
want to jump the gun on insurance. You guys
We're warmed up.
stole my thunder. Insurance, you'll notice that just kind of like the legal and everything else, we kind of moved everything out of the insurance and into the individual departments, except for the municipal insurance. I'm not sure if you caught the number that Ashley said. I think this past year was around 57,000. We don't know what the municipal insurance is obviously going to be for this upcoming fiscal year. We raised it 5%. Obviously, insurance is insurance. Could be a little bit more than that. Could be, I'd say it could be less, but I mean, we all know insurance is probably not going to be. So that's the budgeted number with the 5% increase. Like I said, everything else has been broken out to individual departments.
So that's like the city's kind of overall umbrella.
That's the city's, general liability, professional liability, all that fun stuff.
So there's still the question, like John raised, about just being able to compare current year to what we're budgeting.
Yeah,
I don't need to know what it is for each department. but
Maybe we
just
can
have
combine
to
like
compare.
insurance and legal cost into one folder next year and for this, and then you just say, hey, we've included these, so we're tracking it by department, and here was your.
Here was the total. This year,
total.
the total will be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a 400% increase, we'd want to know that, and we can't see that this way.
Sure.
Or if it's only 25% of what it was, we'd want to recognize that too.
You'd see it in the departments and who had that kind of spikes, but you're right, we wouldn't be able to see the holistic view.
Yeah, we don't. It's not there. I'm not going to add that up by department.
Next is miscellaneous, which is, we're still keeping legal and finance, page 205. Miscellaneous, I don't know, I feel like miscellaneous needs a rebrand. It's more of like nonprofits.
But other cool stuff.
Yeah, other,
Oh, I see.
I might,
Outside organizations,
Yeah,
we
that looks
called
like
it before.
outside.
yes.
Partners.
I thought it was strange last year that it was like this. This is one I kind of, but outside partners or outside organizations, maybe? Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Miscellaneous isn't a good word for it, but obviously you'll see organizations, great organizations such as Hart Ellsworth, Chamber of Commerce. They put in requests each year. You can see their individual requests and obviously what was recommended. We also have our MMA dues, which is our main municipal association dues, so we can participate in all the trainings and everything else that takes place on a yearly basis. And then we got things like shellfish dues and the snowmobile club, which is, just to round out the miscellaneous category we have, that's what we got.
There's, we heard the direction of the subcommittee that sort of reviewed these requests. They, decided kind of with the line of trying to do as much of a maintenance budget to flat fund the request at last year's level. There's a little bit of a weird thing that we're trying to iron out. It says FY, in the cover page, it says FY 2025 budget, 121,000. But then when you actually look in the detail page, the FY 2025 budget only adds to 53,000. So it's not necessarily a decrease. It's just basically level funding at the FY 2025 levels.
I'm not seeing the numbers you're talking about.
So if you look at miscellaneous budget, it says.
There's no 125.
Oh, interesting. Maybe it's.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the
it's-
first page.
It's
121.
And then this page.
So it
says
says department
53.
request 103, and then the manager addresses this. But when you go here, it says your budgeted 53,000.
Just so you know, what that is there's one of the TIF number 3 that we have. Last year it was in the budget of 68,000.
I'm trying to iron that
It's
out.
actually 68,906. It's now been moved to a different section. Honestly, I don't know why your book doesn't show that, because mine does, but that's why the discrepancy in the year-to-date budget.
Gotcha. So there used to be a TIF in there, but it gets moved to a different section, and now it's not tracking that into the first page, but it is tracking to the, at least in what I'm seeing. All right, we'll work on that.
Would that TIF then offset some of the costs of these requests, or how would that, it's just a different? Okay.
No.
Just accounting
Yeah.
for some
I don't want to cause a TIF.
Always got something.
I had to keep up with Patrick. He's already ahead of me tonight, so. Any other questions on miscellaneous before before the crowd falls asleep, we can move to county tax. If you really want to be entertained.
County tax, all right, let me get to my defined county tax. Here we go, 780. Flip it out.
I do have one question. This miscellaneous budget, we're gonna revisit this one of the last ones, right, when you come and speak?
Yeah, social services agencies can come in, I believe. One has already reached out for requests, so I think so. That's the last, let me look at the budget
I
calendar.
think the last one,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
And then they'll speak on this, and we'll be back
Yeah,
to the
April,
stage.
April 3rd or whatever the date that is.
Yeah,
April
Yeah.
3rd.
Yeah, so we'll bounce back to that.
Okay.
And then they'll have an opportunity to speak and tell you more about it.
Okay, great. What page?
If you look at the county tax number, if you would have asked me 2 days ago, I put an approximation of what I thought it was. We just got the bill, actually, I think it was yesterday. So that number is accurate for this fiscal year, that's 747, 446. For those of you who do not know, that's based off of our state valuation. Ellsworth is a percentage of that state valuation, which is around 7.67% or somewhere around there of that state valuation. So that fee is due, I believe it's, has to be paid before September 30th of 2025. And like I said, that is the actual bill, which I believe is actually in the book. I believe we're gonna put that in the book if you have any questions. So you can see the actual chart and how they came up with the figures based on the, like I said, the valuation.
And it's not like we have a choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was willing to say, it's like, not really much we can do other than pay it. I mean,
Do we pay it in a lump sum?
yeah.
It's not due until around October.
Hang on to our money.
7.57.
Yeah, September is the due date, actually.
Yeah, I think it's September 30th.
So that bill is based on the state's valuation of us rather than based on the county's budget and their request for appropriations from municipalities within that county? Or it's based on both?
It's
They-
based on their budget and then our portion
contribution
of
is-
the assessment. So like if
Yeah.
I told, go ahead, Nate.
No, you're right, Tammy, go ahead, sorry.
No, so you were saying it was like 7% of the budget is ours, so.
I see.
we would have
It's
to
the
pay
same
it.
as municipal, where there's the total tax bill divided by the
It's like the mill
valuation.
rate and we're one of the
We're
houses.
9.3% of the overall valuation,
Gotcha.
because we're awesome. So now I pay it costs.
Yeah, so it's that 7.57, sorry, 7.5% of the total assessment, which is shown on the first page of the bill. So, yeah, no point of voting for that, you basically just pay it.
I think one thing to note, though, is the interplay of TIFs on the county, on the state valuation. TIFs capture valuations at a certain level, so actually, some of, it reduces what we pay the county. So-
Because we're paying at that base,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, TIFs kind of capture assessments of certain areas, and then the increase goes through, can either be paid to the city, or go to certain projects, or back to the developer if there's a credit enhancement. Basically, so, not to get on to it, but, the TIFs we have limit, put somewhat, kind of limit as you increase the valuation of municipality, the TIFs kind of capture some of the value, so it keeps it slightly lower, and that means we pay slightly less to the county.
And it also helps with school, the amount that the
Yeah,
state
and then
pays.
states thinks we have less money, and the state pays
For the
us
school
more.
budgets.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just, I thought, there's nothing else to talk about, I thought I'd give us something interesting to talk about with county taxes.
If you ask, like, you want to talk about tips, Jeremy's in the room. Jeremy's in the room. He'll love to talk about tips.
You and Nate Dogg.
I want a tab on TIFs, I think. And I'm sure we're
What you're
gonna,
saying is we need more money for tips.
Let's just
Yeah.
tip it up.
There's
Yeah.
smart.
There's pros and cons, let's not overdo it.
Thankfully, we're not Mount Desert or Bar Harbor.
I know, we should just have them pay the whole thing.
15%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk a little more Tim Talks TIFs later on. I know Jeremy
Jeremy talks too.
connecting on TIFs. There's some interesting aspects there that we're kind of looking into on some potential debt service falling off, some potential surplus TIF revenue, but we want to be 100% on those pieces, so there might be an insert here. I'd also love to just, before we close out tonight, I can't believe we might make it before 9, but if we go to page 22, which is city budget overview.
So we're not done yet, so just hang in there.
Oh, do we have?
We're not out of our chairs yet, is what I mean.
Yeah.
The bell hasn't rung yet, guys.
Yes, sometimes.
So I just want to be like highly cautious about this section for now. So page 22, kind of city budget overview. Once the school budget comes in, we said we kind of penciled it in just so people can start getting an idea about figures. We penciled it in at the same level as last year. So obviously some of these mill calculations, levy, other pieces can change around pretty dramatically depending on what that school number is. It is the vast, or not majority, but it's the biggest department for the budget and can obviously sway it the most one way or the other. But you can see kind of the municipal net appropriation for FY '24 was a 16.6% increase that we talked before, and kind of some of the larger macro trends here. FY '25 is around a 5% increase, and then right now we're in a negative 1.2%, but I want to be very cautious on a few things there. One is that we had a pretty big increase in revenue sharing, state revenue sharing too, so that's kind of minimizing the impact there. But we also had some increases in expenses, but that also accounted as revenues. So the money we passed for bond for roads, that's counted as an expense. We're going to be paying out a couple $1 million additional road funding. It's like, oh my gosh, $2 million additional roads, or what's going on here? But it's also, wow, your revenues are also increasing. Well, that bond's a revenue and expense. I really want to do some more work with Tammy and Michelle when she's back, who have a lot of expertise here on kind of how we categorize that, how it shows up here. So that's where we're at now on the net municipal appropriation, and how that. But once the school rate comes in, where we're at, it's probably not going to be until that school cycles in. Once we talk about TIF a little bit more, once I'm able to dial in with Tammy and Michelle on that budget overview section and each piece. That we can, I think, really start talking a lot more about the mill rates and the tax rates, and is this, as we talked about at the very beginning, and kind of zooming out a little bit. I know we've been zooming into a lot of the details of these, down to animal control fees, et cetera. I love every single bit of that, but zooming out at kind of the end piece here, and how are we able to kind of have a consistent rate of percentage increase for this year that's more in line with historical trends after a couple big years for the taxpayers. So I think that's when 6 or 7 red pens may need to come out on a lot of this, but probably not until the 25th or later. We'll be a little more in line on that, but especially in that early April timeframe, and considering this quality and size of book was not delivered until mid-June last year, and it is now March. We're going to get the school number in. That's one of the reasons we fast-tracked this process, was that you guys would have both sides of the ledger, both the school and the city, as you're looking to potential cut exercises, that it wouldn't just be on the city side. I think previously it's, the school would hear, they have their budget. We wouldn't have any idea what the mill rate's going to be based on that school budget. It essentially was the only thing you had was the school appropriation and zeros for everything else. And then you'd have to pass the school budget at that level, and then the smaller side of government would come in and here's our budgets, and then at the end of the line, this was the only side you had to cut from. So, I think the teams worked extremely hard, all the department heads, to get their budget submissions in by the end of January this year, and then Nate, Ashley, myself, Sarah, our new deputy city manager, Jeremy's been helping us out a lot, and Carrie, of course, and just working like crazy hours to get this sort of, proud to get it in, and to the public that's out there too, if there's we love crowdsourcing errors if you can find them. Love to hear about them, email me about them. I hope there's not too many in there, but we have some great former counselors and others who really know a lot about city municipal budgeting too. I really appreciate their comments last year. And I think that was it for my notes. Oh, now that we have the full budget books tool, and I gave you kind of a preview version online on Tuesday, but if folks could really try to, we have that schedule. The next department presentations are on March 20th, next Thursday. Code, planning, IT, economic development, city manager, police, and fire. If folks could really try to read those lines ahead of time, I've asked the department heads to, if they have just a brief overview of their department, and then any big new or big decreases, but not to go line by line by line. The expectation is that, we've all kind of had a chance to be there. They'll give their bigs, and then you all can, dial into things that you didn't quite get, find just right in the budget that they can talk about. So hopefully to keep these under 3 hours each time.
Could I just ask about the 20th?
Yep.
Could you just run down through the page numbers A through G?
Oh, that's a
That
really
would be
great
helpful,
idea.
because they are kind of all over.
Good thinking.
What's
Do you
that?
have those?
For the 20, I don't, but you know what? Why
You
don't,
don't have that? Okay.
how about we just edit this document and then we'll print
Yeah,
you
I
some.
can do that. They're also in
Nice.
the table of contents.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, right here,
Okay,
right on
okay.
the.
All right,
second
all right.
Incredible.
Then you write it down and let us all know.
And you can also,
I'll edit it and send it out to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's just a great tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
For some of the things that we went over tonight where some of the numbers already need to be adjusted, do you just reprint that one page and we put it in here, or how does the updating work?
we discussed that previous, but it's, Ashley's gonna keep track of the log, and then as you're looking at your book, there is like a council kind of update section, and then we'll kind of go over at the very end. I know, I could also see us needing one more session after that April date when we kind of receive that as sort of like where we're at.
Yeah.
There's a couple pieces, as I mentioned before. There might be some surplus TIF funding. We want to talk about more about that piece. There may be a couple areas that you all think haven't been considered after now we have a comp plan, a housing task force plan, some of these other pieces. How do we, it might just be, I feel like one more meeting at the end of this might be necessary. And could also start, we're going to talk a little bit about capital improvement planning, but kind of might segue into the capital improvement planning, the reserve account funding. There's a lot of stuff now that it's good news that we can really start addressing these pieces, but it's not just the budget cycle that, will be set, I think, in a good place where school can go off. But, and Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll still be able to edit the municipal side of things even after the school's kind of locked from their vote, before we actually send out to tax committee a couple months later. And that's the other promise, Steve, and I know you'll hold me to it, that's why I say you. We're getting those bills out on time this year. I know it's been multiple years where they're not out there. We've done this whole work early. There's not just the process of doing this, but actually sending the bills as well, so.
Could I just
Yeah.
comment on your question? In years past, we'd come to at least since I've been here, we'd come into a workshop and there'd be a whole stack. Oh, rip that out of the book, put this in the book. We don't want to get into all of that.
I think I did that to you guys a couple times myself, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we want to get into that,
Gotcha.
rip this out, put this in.
No, it really
It was
is.
wicked confusing.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
This is great.
When it comes to the school budget, they come up, the school board comes up with their number, and then we have to approve it, but do we tinker with it? Like, what is the process for council looking at school stuff?
Tammy, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you all don't have line item veto in the same way that you could say, let's vote on this. Charlie wanted to really give it tuition reimbursement, but the council doesn't, but maybe 5 of the council do, or maybe 5 don't. You guys can line item this, but the school's budget, you can ask them to do a cut exercise of an X% in order for you all to feel like you're comfortable approving it, but you can't tell them where necessarily. Is that correct, Tammy?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then it goes out to the voters as well. So it's approval on a number to go to the voters.
A June vote, is that
Correct.
okay?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that's being,
Is this the last year we're gonna do that, or?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of locked for us. It's, we could go out to referendum but we'll have to actually do a referendum to remove it, so I don't,
There was discussion of doing that a year ago,
There
like, do we
was.
still need to do this, but no action.
yeah, I got, the legal advice was that, maybe I can talk to Patrick, he's looking more suspicious about the legal advice here, I always get it in.
City has excellent legal counsel. I just sometimes have a different opinion.
Yeah, but that, the last year is next year, technically, but unless we
3-year
pass a
cycle.
referendum saying that we will remove this practice, like, we just have to keep doing it. So, like, we basically have to re-trigger the referendum, but so.
And it's every 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could pass again to do that. But we've now aligned our municipal budget processes. I'd love to be a little bit later, just so we can have a little more year-to-date actuals from the prior year, to be, not have that piece. The other thing is a little, I don't want to, take us off track. We're going to set the date, set the deadline, get it out there, but I don't believe, I talked to Tina recently, there's no, like, state, so it's just this is really the only reason we're having an election this cycle. So, and that's usually in, like, the hundreds of voters, not the thousands and thousands for a big primary or break. So it's a hand count. We're not even planning on, it's easy enough for that. So we could, one of the reasons that we have it early, we have to have it really early is because we got to print the ballots, and there's a deadline for that, and the state's kind of processes, but we're printing our own ballots this year for that process. So there might be a break glass if we really feel like you need a couple more weeks in the school budget, but, I think we're setting things up so we don't have to do that, but.
Is there any way we could print our own ballots if it's the only item and we're hand
Yeah,
counting?
we
So
can.
That's cool.
And actually, we plan to do that.
Okay.
But we added this deadline in this date, just in case the state said we're gonna have a vote on blankety blank. So, but we set the deadlines, we've met the deadlines, and hopefully the school comes in and you're all able to make a decision based on knowing all the city information, knowing the school information, and what the total mill rate, and we'll, or not, or it could be the mill is way too high for your comfort, based on the past couple of years, and then if we're in a different category, we could consider the break glass option too.
I also had one other question. The year-to-date for 2025, what's the date on that? Is like today? Is that real-time today?
March, it has it in the book. It says, March 13th. I think it's on that budget overview page that
okay.
we're just looking at with the mill.
Okay.
And so now that
all
you're,
the year-to-date actuals are based on today's date.
Okay.
and yeah, it's kind of one of the fun things about the new building the budget within the software is, like, you pull it up,
Real time.
That's nice.
it's giving you really, you don't have to send around Excel sheets again and kind of risk something not tracking over, and huge props to Nate and IT for helping us
Yeah.
implement that.
100%.
That's gonna pay big dividends in the future. Cool. All right, see you next week,
Good
and Monday.
stuff.